On the day our sect selected spirit beasts, I abandoned all the rare creatures and sneaked off to Peach Blossom Isle for some floral wine. In my past life, I exhausted all means to obtain celestial elixirs that awakened my contracted beast's primordial bloodline, yet during the Heavenly Prodigy tournament, the spirit beast I'd painstakingly nurtured recognized my junior sister as its true master. He forcibly severed our bond, shattered my meridians, and gouged out both my eyes. My junior sister stole my position as sect leader, becoming a world-renowned beast-taming prodigy, while I was branded a demonic cultivator who forced beast contracts, scorned by righteous sects and disgraced by my own. My cultivation partner personally cast me into the abyssal demon pit to perish, even as demonic cultivators drained my flesh and blood. I couldn't comprehend why the spirit beast I raised would choose her as master, or why my childhood sweetheart betrayed me. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the early stages of spirit beast contracting. Jing, I found you many pure-blooded spirit beasts. The most prized is an ancient black serpent with primordial bloodline. Hurry and form a contract with it. My cultivation partner Hale urged me. Today was the beast-taming sect's decennial contracting ceremony. I'm the young sect master of the beast-taming sect. Yet I still haven't claimed my own contracted spirit beast, when my father fell unexpectedly. I became his sole heir as his biological daughter, the only one qualified to succeed him, but my youth makes the elders question my authority. The elders proposed a challenge. If I lead our disciples to victory at the Prodigy tournament and bring glory to our sect, they'll swear allegiance, otherwise, I must relinquish my inheritance to a worthier successor. That's why contracting a spirit beast today is absolutely crucial for me. Yet the agony of being devoured alive by demonic cultivators still lingers in my soul. With trembling hands, I stared at my unmarked palms and suddenly realized I've been reborn. My entire existence rewound to the day of the spirit beast contract. I clenched my teeth to suppress my emotions, not letting Hale notice the slightest hint of my turmoil. Seeing my silence, he coaxed persuasively. Just nurture the dark serpent with your father's legacy to awaken its ancient black dragon bloodline. Who would dare disrespect you then? In my past life, his words convinced me to immediately take the serpent back for bonding. I retrieved the legacy my father left within my dantian, studying it meticulously to comprehend its depths. Following my father's teachings, I extracted my vital essence and nurtured it within my dantian for 49 days. As my cultivation rapidly dissipated, I grew weaker by the day. When the time came, I drew out the elixir infused with my essence and fed it to the black serpent. The serpent's eyes instantly changed. It drew nourishment from my essence, establishing a profound resonance with me. In that moment, I felt everything I'd done was worth it. Defying my weakened state, I formed the ancestral array to forge a pact with the obsidian serpent. A golden radiance erupted as the contract sealed, awakening the primordial black dragon bloodline within the serpent. For millennia, no cultivator save those who achieved ascension has ever tamed a spirit beast bearing ancient bloodlines. On the day we formed our pact, my spirit beast revealed itself as a long-lost dragon, my competence soared, certain I'd claim victory at the celestial tournament and be crowned the supreme prodigy. Yet when I summoned the black dragon, it shattered our contract, pulverized my meridians, and gouged out my eyes. The majestic black dragon prostrated itself at Lyriel's feet, bowing in submission. Senior sister, I never imagined you'd stoop to demonic cultivation tactics just to secure your position as sect leader, forcing my black dragon into a contract with you, shameless wretch. My soul has long resonated with the dragons. We share life and death itself. Did you truly think your petty contract could override that? Behold your backfired scheme. Lyriel denounced me with righteous indignation. The entire cultivation world watched this spectacle unfold, while the 5 great sects presiding over the Heavenly Pride tournament outright barred me from competing. What an embarrassment to our beast-taming sect. How is she even qualified to be the sect leader? Exactly, hand over the late sect leader's legacy now. Junior sister is a prodigy beast-tamer. She's the only worthy successor, a disgrace to our late master. Get out of our beast-taming sect this instant. My own disciples turned against me, rallying behind Lyriel as their new leader and demanding I surrender the inheritance. Without a shred of gratitude for my years of mentorship, severely wounded and drenched in blood, I lay motionless, staring at Hale in despair. He was my cultivation partner. For 49 days as I nurtured my vital essence, he tended to me faithfully, witnessing even my transformation into an obsidian dragon when the Xian bloodline awakened. If only he would testify for me. Jing, how could you do this? I've gravely misjudged you. To my astonishment, he confronted me with an expression of utter anguish. Disbelief turned to rage as I listened to his words, until a surge of blood erupted from my mouth and my already faltering body collapsed to the ground. From that moment on, no one would ever believe me again. Lyriel struck my abdomen with her palm, attempting to forcibly extract the legacy from my dantian. Forgive me, senior sister. I cannot let the beast-taming sex legacy fall to a dark cultivator and bring shame upon our patriarch. Fear not, our sisterly bond remains. Even without the inheritance, I shall still honor you as our first disciple. The crowd admired Lyriel's magnanimity, deeming such virtue worthy of greater responsibilities. The black dragon, however, believed I had humiliated it earlier, swearing to devour me to vent its wrath. If the black dragon doesn't seek vengeance, it risks falling into demonic obsession. I, Hale, am willing to sacrifice our bond and sever our cultivation pact to secure the beast-taming sex future. Already weakened, the destruction of our cultivation pact left me completely crippled. Jing, we were once husband and wife. I don't wish to see you die, but since you've chosen the demonic path, descend into the abyss of fiends. Before the entire assembly, Hale personally cast me into the abyss of fiends. The demonic cultivator inside lunged at me instantly, tearing into my flesh bite by bite, until death. I never understood why my fiancé refused to testify for me, or why the black dragon I raised with my own hands would acknowledge Lyriel as its master. Reborn, I've become powerful enough to safeguard my father's legacy, never again to be trampled like an insect as in my past life. As for that disloyal, contracted beast, good riddance. Memories of my past life surged through my mind as I faced the man who murdered my betrothed. Testing him with feigned composure. With my father's legacy, I've no need to compete with junior disciples for spirit beasts. Let's give this obsidian serpent to Lyriel instead. Hale sneered. How could she compare to you? That gluttonous layabout would be lucky to contract even a wild boar. Though his demeanor showed nothing amiss, the bitter lessons of my past life made me distrust him completely in this incarnation. Hale was an abandoned infant my father found and brought home. He grew up in our sect, and we were childhood sweethearts. The moment I achieved foundation establishment, he couldn't wait to ask my father for my hand. We were both lovers and family. I still don't understand why he would betray me. Now that I've been reborn, I'll uncover the truth, but I won't repeat my mistakes or be anyone's stepping stone again. Watching the obsidian serpent undergoing metamorphosis into a black dragon before me, I raised my hand to withdraw the essence blood from its flesh. The serpent let out a hoarse cry as its budding dragon horns crumbled away. Its transformation abruptly halted before collapsing as a lifeless, mangled corpse. With a cold smirk, I abandoned all the prized spirit beasts in my manor, summoned a skiff, and sailed alone to the Isle of Immortal Peaches. Gazing at the island blanketed in peach blossoms, caressed by gentle breezes, the fury in my heart unexpectedly stilled. I must not let the shadows of my past life breed inner demons that would ruin my future. Only now have I truly looked inward, reconsidering what spirit beast to contract if I'm to triumph in the Heavenly Pride tournament. Just as I was meditating, Hale, who had been in seclusion attempting Golden Core breakthrough, suddenly emerged early and stormed onto Immortal Peach Isle. Why did you kill the profound serpent I painstakingly obtained for you? He demanded furiously. With the Heavenly Pride tournament approaching, a beast-taming sect disciple without a contracted beast is like a warrior without weapons. How do you expect to win the tournament and secure your position as sect leader? He pressed on relentlessly. Had I not remembered my past life, I might have mistaken his actions for genuine concern. I don't care for serpents, I remarked coolly, taking a sip of peach blossom wine. Be good. Come with me to contract a spirit beast, if snakes displease you. I'll find another species for you. He urgently tried to pull me back with him, instinctively avoiding his touch. I rolled off the peach blossom tree and walked leisurely toward the newly built thatched cottage. I don't want to form a spirit beast contract anymore. Hale's face darkened. No contract. That's unacceptable. Anyway, the elders don't think highly of me. Let whoever wants to be sect leader take the position. You, such a disgrace. Are you really going to let your father down? Hale seethed with frustration, but seeing me seal the thatched hut's door with a barrier, he could only grit his teeth and walk away. Watching his retreating figure from the window, I took another swig of wine, thinking to myself, this time, I'll expose your true colors. I couldn't care less about becoming sect leader. Father never demanded I inherit the position anyway. Yet I truly need a spirit beast companion to enhance my cultivation and safeguard my father's legacy. But where could I possibly find such a rare and compatible spirit beast? After much deliberation, I ventured into the perilous Beastfang Mountains, hoping to tame a formidable creature, yet these savage beasts lacked spiritual essence, mere brutes driven by primal instincts, utterly unfit as bonded companions. I've transformed my legacy into a book, its essence imprinted upon my face. In a sudden flash of memory, I recalled my childhood, my father holding me in the grand hall of our sect. Stroking his beard with a chuckle, a contracted beast is your soulmate, your companion, but never overestimate the binding power of contracts. Even friends may betray you. I abruptly snapped the book open and bolted upright. If even friends can betray you, what if that friend was part of myself? The thought consumed me. Unable to resist the urge, I raced to Flame Mountain to claim a rare fire essence. then journeyed to the blood pool behind the beast-taming sect's rear peaks. This crimson pool held the remains of countless guardian spirit beasts, sacred ground where none but the sect leader dared approach, lest they perish from the backlash. Centering my chi, I took a deep breath and plunged into the pool. Countless malevolent energies surged into my body, unleashing excruciating pain that erupted through every fiber of my being. Gritting my teeth, I carved flesh from my own body, using the dark energies as a protective shroud to begin the ritual. After 81 days of torment, the blood pool churned violently as howling winds tore through the sky. Now draped in divine golden light, a crimson phoenix burst forth, soaring toward the heavens, cloaked in ethereal flames with crimson scales. Its golden eyes surveyed all creation with disdain, until meeting my gaze in the blood pool, where I saw my own reflection staring back. With a mere gesture, it obeyed my will as seamlessly as my own arm. From my own flesh and blood I'd nurtured this peerless bonded beast, no celestial spirit, but a creature born of my essence, sharing my veins and vibrating with my soul. Ecstasy surged through me at the realization. I began weaving blood sigils across the pool, trembling with anticipation to seal the Phoenix Pact. With the contract successfully sealed, my mind was finally at ease. No one could ever take my contracted beast from me now. I picked up the gourd wine bottle and took a swig, only to find it completely empty. Realizing today was a joyous occasion, I suddenly felt inspired. Disguising myself, I hurried down the mountain to buy wine for celebration, but the moment I stepped into the tavern, I heard everyone buzzing about Lyriel. Heard Lyriel from the beast-taming sect contracted a pheasant. What a joke, even a spirit fox would have been better. Your intel's outdated. She's a prodigy beastmaster. The pheasant is undergoing phoenix rebirth and will soon evolve into a blood phoenix. What? The blood phoenix reigns supreme among spirit beasts. Lyriel truly is a once-in-a-generation genius. Might as well hand the sect leadership over to her already. Haha. They burst into laughter before seamlessly shifting to other topics, yet I stood frozen in place, a chill running down my spine. Why did I ever get the mad idea to cultivate a blood phoenix? Lyriel has one too. I can't understand why every spirit beast I contract ultimately becomes Lyriel's. I returned to the sect in utter despair. The elders and Hale's group were already geared up, ready to depart for the Heavenly Pride tournament. Lyriel clung to Hale's side, coquettishly whispering something that made him laugh. They looked far more like a loving couple than Hale and I ever did. Lyriel was the infant girl Hale brought home. He raised her with meticulous care, overseeing every detail of her upbringing. Too, he cared for her more than he ever did for me. I actually got jealous at one point, but he just smiled and said, I only see Lyriel as a child. Why would you compete with her? I thought he'd take Lyriel as his disciple, but instead he asked my father to accept her. Since father already treated him like his own son, he granted the request. And so Lyriel became our junior sect sister. Later, when father passed away, I succeeded as sect leader. He kept whispering in my ear, belittling Lyriel as untalented and lazy, but having watched her grow up, I couldn't bear to see her struggle, so we raided our cultivation vaults, showering Lyriel with elixirs to boost her cultivation. Hale spotted me in his peripheral vision and pulled Lyriel to stand behind him. Jing, you're finally back. Did you find a suitable spirit beast contract? You've been missing for weeks. Now that you've found one, summon it so the elders can see. After all, you'll be representing our beast-taming sect in the Prodigy tournament. Hale's eyes brimmed with concern, returning to the familiar warmth I remembered. At his words, all the elders' eyes turned toward me. Their gazes bore the same scrutiny and doubt as in my past life. Instinctively, I lied. I did find one, but something feels off, so I haven't made the contract yet. A ripple of laughter broke the silence as Lyriel came bouncing out. Senior sister, I really can't imagine what kind of spirit beast could satisfy you. Not like me, I'm easily pleased. The other day I came across a pheasant in the mountains. It caught my eye, so I formed a contract with it. Since you've inherited Master's beast taming techniques, would you mind checking if this contracted beast suits me? She tilted her head with a playful smile and summoned her contracted beast with a spell. Blazing flames surged forward, revealing glimpses of a crimson figure. A chilling sensation shot from my soles to my skull, leaving me paralyzed with tingling numbness. What Lyriel summoned was none other than my blood phoenix, elder sister. When talent falls short, one must nourish their contracted beast with flesh and blood. Who knew it had come to this? It's practically part of my flesh and blood now. Controlling it feels as natural as using my own hands. Senior sister, what do you think of this contracted beast? Lyriel chattered incessantly in my ear, her innocent smile as devious as a demon's. The elders gazed at her with fondness, saying, Lyriel, you possess remarkable talent yet remain unaware of it. Don't be so harsh on yourself. My body turned ice cold, swaying unsteadily on my feet. Good heavens, senior sister, what's happened to you? Come to think of it, I haven't named it yet. Since it's crimson red, let's call it Blood Phoenix, drawn by the phoenix's majestic aura. I stepped closer for a better look, only to meet its glacial stare before it spewed strange flames at me. I almost got burned and disfigured. Senior sister, how could you mess with someone else's contracted beast? Senior brother, look at her. Lyriel pouted and clung to Hale's arm coquettishly. It was clearly nurtured with my own flesh and blood. How did it become your contracted beast? I screamed internally, yet could only clench my fists, not daring to show a trace of it. If I were to argue with her in public, I'd surely be condemned by all. Just like in my past life, to covet another's contracted beast is considered despicable by the sect, the act of a vile cultivator. No matter what spirit beast I contract, will it always end up belonging to Lyriel, so all my efforts were just paving the way for her success. A bone-chilling despair engulfed me, suffocating and inescapable. All right, little junior, stop fooling around, Hale said while patting your head. Then turned to me, Jing, quit being so secretive. As the sect leader, how can you be more coy than our junior sect leader? With the grand competition approaching, won't you summon your spirit beast for me to see? The elders spoke, but the look in their eyes made it clear they had little faith in me. Of course, with the blood phoenix, the king of all beasts, why would they care what spirit creature I could produce? I stared fixedly at the blood phoenix, unable to comprehend why it had chosen my junior sister as its master despite my flawless preparations. Seeing me utterly dejected, the elders, convinced I couldn't secure a better contracted beast than Lyriel, summoned all disciples for the celestial tournament. No one takes this sect leader seriously. Senior sister, stop daydreaming. Even without a contracted beast, you're still the face of our beast-taming sect. Lyriel peeked out from behind Hale, flashing me a triumphant grin. Always the troublemaker, stop teasing your senior sister. Hale shook his head, pinching her cheek affectionately before turning to sigh at me, his face full of disappointment. Jing, since you clearly don't care about succession, let someone more capable in the sect take the position. The words were directed at me, yet equally meant for Lyriel. Lyriel grinned with smug triumph, already acting as if the sect leader's mantle was hers. Watching the retreating crowd, I clenched my fists in fury, stormed to the blood pool, summoned the crimson phoenix, and strangled it with bare hands. If it was never meant to be mine, then let it be utterly destroyed. The phoenix shrieked, heaven and earth darkened, and with a thunderous roar, the rain poured down in torrents. The blood phoenix vanished between heaven and earth. Staring at the pool of blood on the ground, I threw my head back and laughed. Let's see what Lyriel brings to the celestial tournament, soaked to the bone. I stumbled back to the sect in disgrace. To my shock, Hale, who'd just left, burst back in, grabbed my wrist, and yanked me off the bed. Jing, are you insane? You actually killed your contracted beast again, you idiot. The celestial tournament is tomorrow. Without a contracted beast, I'll summon the elders to expel you from the sect. Watching Hale's furious reaction, I smiled playfully. How do you know I killed my contracted beast? Didn't I just say I hadn't formed a contract yet? His voice faltered, panic flashing across his face. As your sworn soulbound companion, how could I not know what's happening to you? My gaze darkened. The marital covenant bound us as the closest of partners, so long as we honored its sacred vows. It was precisely this mystical brand that made me trust Hale, yet father warned against placing too much faith in contractual bonds. Seeing my stubborn refusal to listen, his tone softened. I'm just worried you'll lose your position as sect leader. Your father's legacy, if resentment takes root, it'll hinder your cultivation. That's why I'm so anxious. Everything I do is for your own good. Why can't you understand that? Enough now. Today we'll form a new spirit beast contract. I've prepared ample rare treasures. Success is guaranteed. As he spoke, he reached to embrace me as always. Whenever I got angry, he'd hold me close and coax me gently until my temper faded. 3. The mere thought of him being intimate with Lyriel makes me sick to my stomach. I slapped him across the face. First you tell me to step down, now you urge me to secure my position as sect leader. How many faces do you wear? Hale, my cultivation surpassed his. He couldn't dodge in time. His face snapped sideways, immediately swelling red. You. Hale's eyes darkened dangerously, but before he could speak, the door burst open from outside. Lyriel burst in, disheveled and panting heavily. She immediately lashed out at me. Senior sister, how could you be so cruel? You've killed your contracted beast again. Her eyes were red-rimmed, as if I'd committed some unforgivable atrocity. Hale also tried to persuade me. Jing, look, for tomorrow's elite tournament, just contract another spirit beast. Lyriel chimed in. Come on, senior sister. Stop being so petty, I drawled deliberately. The sect already has your blood phoenix, junior sister. Unlike you, I've no interest in petty rivalries. Watching their faces cycle through shades of fury and panic, I stormed out the door with immense satisfaction. Startled, they scrambled after me, demanding to know where I was going. I burst out laughing. Boring, let's go find something fun to do. Then I leaped into the valley of 10,000 beasts under their stunned gazes. What others saw as a perilous death trap had long been my personal playground. After learning of this ability, my father entrusted me with the beast-taming legacy the moment I established my foundation. I still remember that day when father excitedly tipped my hand and said, "Jing, you're the chosen beast master, capable of resonating with all living things." Before I knew it, I'd wandered into the lair of the Beast King, disturbed from its slumber. The creature was about to roar in fury when I sealed it with a talisman, instantly taming its ferocity. Lying atop the Beast King's back, I pondered tomorrow's grand tournament of prodigies. No matter how hard I try, am I just paving the way for Lyriel's success? But I refused to accept this. There must be another way. Lost in thought, I drifted off to sleep without realizing it. In my dream, I saw my father leading me to the summit of Beast Valley. Jing, betrayal is part of every person's journey. A mere contract can never change someone's entire life, father said while patting my head. Young and confused, I asked, then wouldn't it be better if I just didn't have any friends? No, one cannot live without friends, just as a beastmaster cannot exist without contracted beasts. But when you have many companions, what does losing one or two matter? Father chuckled. I suddenly jolted awake, bursting into laughter. Then I leaped off the back of the Beast King. My cultivation is profound. Binding a spirit beast requires formidable mental strength to suppress it, lest it turn against its master. Having endured the trials of my past life, my spiritual power has reached unparalleled heights. If one contracted beast might betray me, what of 10 or 100? I slit my wrist and began chanting the incantation. By heaven and earth I swear, offering my cultivation and the path I walk, to forge kinship with all living creatures under the cosmos. Will you willingly form a pact with me? A golden light spread across the valley, drawing ferocious beasts from all directions. After consuming the radiant energy and gaining immense power, they all pledged allegiance to me. This time, I formed contracts with 100,000 spirit beasts. Think you can still steal them, Lyriel? I rushed back to the Celestial Prodigy Tournament. Lyriel was dueling a sword-sect disciple when she casually gestured, commanding her contracted beast to tear off half the woman's arm. The sword sect elder erupted in fury, only to be restrained by Hale. Hale gave a cold chuckle. What's this about, elder? Injuries during sparring are perfectly normal. No need for such theatrics. The elder fumed with bulging eyes, yet remained utterly powerless. Spotting my arrival, Hale immediately called out, Jing, perfect timing. Where's your contracted beast? Summon it now for everyone to see. Hale rose to his feet, eyes gleaming with greed, with a smirk. I summoned a spirit beast, only for it to immediately dash onto the platform and prostrate itself at Lyriel's feet. The crowd froze in shock as Hale erupted into raucous laughter from the high platform. Lyriel stood on the dueling stage, condemning me with the same righteous fury as in our past life. Senior sister, I never expected you'd stoop to stealing my contracted beast. Fortunately, my cultivation is strong enough to contract a second one. Though the first still recognized its true master and eventually returned. Senior sister, I'm shocked you've actually resorted to demonic cultivation techniques. The crowd pointed and whispered about me, but I paid them no mind. Stepping onto the dueling platform, I smiled at her and said, oh really, then how about a duel? Junior sister, Lyriel eagerly accepted and laid down the wager. If I lose, I'll relinquish my position as sect leader and hand over the legacy. The whole crowd gathered for the spectacle, all betting on Lyriel's victory. Lyriel's eyes gleamed with greed as she commanded her two contracted beasts to charge at me. Just as the beasts' claws were about to strike, I raised my hand and summoned 10 contracted beasts. They instantly devoured the one that had betrayed me. Everyone was stunned. The beast-taming sect elders on the viewing platform rose to their feet, gaping at the scene in disbelief. Lyriel on the arena platform pointed at me in shock. How could you possibly contract so many beasts? Impossible. This can't be happening. You must be using dark magic. Yes, that's it. I forfeit. Senior brother, save me. She desperately tried to flee the arena, but my contracted beast gave her no quarter, pouncing instantly to sever her limbs, reducing her to a helpless torso. Hale rushed down from the elder's platform to block my path, shielding Lyriel behind him as he hurled frenzied accusations at me. You must be a dark cultivator. Only demonic practitioners could form contracts with so many spirit beasts. Damnable woman, why don't you just die? You're nothing but a heretic cultivator who deserves expulsion from our sect. The crowd was stunned. Why would Hale publicly berate his own fiancée over some Lyriel? I smirked coldly, pointing at him. Because you, Hale, murdered the master who raised you as his own son. And Lyriel here intends to kill the senior sister who watched her grow up. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This was unthinkable. A master is like a father for life. Killing one's own teacher violates the natural order and all moral principles. With a chilling laugh, I immobilized him and began a soul search. I've long suspected there was more to father's death than meets the eye. During closed-door cultivation breakthroughs, it's virtually impossible for outsiders to interfere. Only Hale and Lyriel could have possibly had the opportunity. What happened next left everyone in stunned disbelief. That fleeting look of venom in Hale's eyes when Father reprimanded him for lacking ambition, his sudden interruption during Father's critical cultivation breakthrough proved fatal. I watched him descend into demonic cultivation, twisting our sacred cultivation pact into a master-slave contract, with him as the master and me as his chattel. A master may claim any possession from his slave, such is the natural order. No wonder my contracted beast Lyriel always has a perfect duplicate. Hale murdered the master who raised him, a betrayal of kinship and Tao. He's no longer human, unable to bear the pointing fingers around him any longer. Hale lunged at me in a desperate attempt to take us both down. I shoved him away with a palm strike, my voice trembling as I demanded, "Why did you kill Father? He treated you like his own son. Doesn't your conscience torment you?" Hale burst into maniacal laughter. "Ha ha, he brought this upon himself by passing the legacy to a woman. I'm the rightful sect leader. What gives you the right? If he acknowledged me as his son, why wouldn't he entrust the legacy to me? What makes you better than me? You're inferior in every way. You lack my talent yet crave instant success," I said, staring at him. Without another word, I cast them into the abyss, just as they'd done to me in our past lives. Empty words only serve to console oneself. Real change comes through action. Centuries later, I ascended with the king of monstrous beasts. As I rose, all creatures bowed in reverence. I had become the undisputed lord of all beasts. With one final glance at the mortal realm, I turned away without regret to seek my next great destiny. Story 2. 3 days before the freezing apocalypse, my best friend and I bought 2 stones at an antique stall. She obtained the ability of space, I obtained the ability of beauty. My best friend took over a supermarket's supplies for free, revealed her space ability, and was tied up, becoming the team's living food storage. Thanks to my extraordinary beauty, I attracted the admiration of all the males in the team, becoming the team's favorite. I took the opportunity when the team went on a mission to untie her and tried to run away with her. My best friend laughed madly and released the supplies to crush me. "It's all your fault for choosing the beauty ability, which made me so miserable." When I was crushed to the point of lung rupture, I reincarnated to the day when I was shopping with my best friend. "This time, I won't leave any of them for you." I declared that I had finally been reborn and could make choices. I quickly bit my finger open. I dripped blood on 2 black stones. As soon as the blood soaked in, I had a vast space in my mind. I didn't even pay attention to how my appearance had changed. I grabbed it just to prevent my younger cousin from using it to trouble me later. With such a vast space, I no longer needed to act obsequious, please others, or live by others' expressions. As for my best friend, she was really naive. After being reborn, who would still let you choose between 2 options? The villain dies from talking too much. After she calmed down from the great joy of rebirth, she was preparing to bind her powers, but found that the 2 stones had already cracked. 1. I put my hands in my pockets, watching her stunned expression with a slight smile. "Greer, you also reborn, right?" My best friend rushed towards me, grabbing my arm and asking crazily, "If I say no, would you believe me? There's not much time. If you want to waste time arguing here, I won't accompany you. Only 3 days." Even with space I could only stock up a little. Renovating the house is impossible in such a short time. How could I have time to act out a tearful drama with her? I pulled away from my mentally unstable best friend. I took a taxi to a car rental company and rented a van. Although space can store supplies, it is still necessary to be discreet before the end of the world to avoid causing panic and investigation. After renting the car, I immediately drove to the largest agricultural wholesale market nearby. I still have over 2 million yuan in funds I can use. A large portion of it is the money my parents gave me to buy a house near my company for my convenience at work. Thinking about this, I called a video conference in the family group. Although it was a weekday, my parents answered the call immediately. "Greer, you said you were looking at houses today. Did you find a model you like?" my mother asked with concern. And my father was also listening carefully. "Dad, Mom, what I'm about to say is very serious. You must believe me. The extreme cold apocalypse is coming in 3 days, and it will last for several months. I'm on my way to stock up on supplies now. You two should go home and have the workers do the renovation. Do as much insulation as possible. Don't be reluctant to spend money. Also, my best friend Neve and I had a falling out. She came back from the dead. In the previous life, she killed me. And now her mind is messed up. Don't believe anything she says. Also, the news about the extreme cold coming must not be told to anyone. I'm afraid we'll be in danger." I told my parents everything in one go. To say that there are people in this world who will unconditionally trust me and never betray me, it can only be them. My parents saw that I wasn't joking. Even though the concepts of the extreme cold apocalypse and reincarnation were beyond their understanding, they still chose to believe me. My parents digested the information I gave them in just 1 minute, then they immediately asked for leave from work, told me to be careful outside, and said they would contact the construction company right away. Moreover, they thought more carefully than I did. My father said, since the best friend is also reincarnated, she is a dangerous person, and we can't stay in a place she knows. My mother was worried about the money, and she decided to put the house, originally worth over $4 million, on the market at a discounted price through the real estate agent. Considering safety and privacy, Dad proposed to rent an air raid shelter on the mountain with the remaining savings and have it reinforced. Air raid shelters are naturally warm in winter and cool in summer, and they have plenty of space, making them ideal as a shelter base. I believe my parents can handle the infrastructure for the rear base. Hang up the phone, park the truck, and go to the stall to start shopping. I bought 500 pounds each of beef, mutton, pork, chicken, fish, and shrimp. I also bought a lot of processed foods. I bought enough vegetables for 3 people to last 2 years, including cabbage, potatoes, radishes, spinach, and coriander, as well as other vegetables. Considering that Mom likes gardening, I also bought a lot of seeds and planting pots. 2. I didn't forget to buy basic seasonings like soy sauce, salt, and vinegar, as well as some pickled vegetables. The most important part was the staple foods like rice and flour, as well as coarse grains, which were all bought in bulk, as if I had emptied the vegetable market. Also bought cotton quilt, drinking water, down jacket, charcoal, hand warmers, toilet paper, shampoo and shower gel sets, and other essential supplies for an apocalyptic cold scenario, considering the extreme cold. Heavy snowfall, damaged base stations, power outages, and loss of mobile phone signals. I also bought a shovel, candles, walkie-talkies, batteries, solar charging panels, radio, compass, and maps as emergency shelter equipment. After ensuring basic living needs, I bought a bunch of novels and entertainment materials like board games. I also remembered that in novels, the female protagonists in apocalyptic stories stock up on cat litter for toilet use, so I bought some as well. Since the space is large enough and has a refrigeration function, there's no need to worry about storage of supplies or issues like expiration and spoilage. I cautiously loaded the van to the brim, took a round around the area, then stored the supplies in the space, and drove back to the wholesale market. When I left the wholesale market, there was still over $1.5 million left in my account. There are still medicines, gasoline, and self-defense tools left to purchase. These supplies are difficult to stock, so I planned to spend the remaining 2 days collecting them. The night was getting darker, and most shops were closed, so I couldn't buy anything. I drove my minivan to the family room at the hotel my parents had booked and met them there. In my previous life, I didn't know that the extreme cold apocalypse was coming. When the temperature dropped sharply, I happened to be on a business trip to the neighboring city. Seeing the weather forecast with a red alert for low temperatures, I just thought it was a regular cold wave. I didn't expect that the next day, heavy snow blocked the city. The snow was so deep that it covered the hedges on both sides of the road. No matter how much I offered, no drivers were willing to take me back. My parents and I were separated, until later, when communication failed, we were forced to lose contact, before the supplies in the hotel ran out. A group of people who called themselves a civilian rescue team found me. When I was happy to go out with them, I saw my best friend tied up in the car's trunk. A beautiful but helpless girl like me immediately realized the situation. Meeting these people was the scariest thing in the apocalypse. In order to survive and save my best friend, I pretended to be a meek and flirtatious girl in front of them. I endured their perverted touches and teasing. I was lucky I didn't tell them my parents' location from the beginning. I didn't expect that my best friend, whom I worked so hard to save, would regard me as an enemy. Fortunately, in this life, I not only have a space to collect supplies, but I can also be with my parents to resist the extreme cold apocalypse together. Dad, Mom, I'm back. I was busy all day, leaving me no energy to think about those annoying people and things. 3. Seeing my parents safe and sound again. I felt a mix of complex emotions: relief, excitement, happiness, shame. I couldn't help but burst into tears, but my parents looked at me in a strange way. Oh right, I now have the beauty ability. My appearance has changed a lot. With my makeup, I look about 7 out of 10, but even without it, I can now directly debut as a celebrity. I felt a bit embarrassed and explained to my parents about the opportunities one seized after my rebirth. Greer, you're not wrong. Being kind to her is being cruel to yourself. My parents were happy about my growth and didn't hold back in their praise. No matter how your appearance changes, you will always be our daughter. My nose felt stuffy, and I hugged my parents tightly, crying until I was sobbing. The feeling of being with my family is really good. Stupid child, what's there to cry about? As long as your parents are here, you don't have to bear the weight of the world. Mom took out a tissue to wipe my tears and patted my back to calm me down. Okay, stop crying. Dad saw me crying with red eyes, and he felt bad too. He blamed himself for not protecting his daughter well. I told my parents my stockpiling list and we checked for any missing items. Greer, if it's really as you said, heavy snow blocking the city, then we should buy some skiing equipment, as well as lifeboats and inflatable boats. After heavy snow comes heavy flooding, Dad shared his thoughts. And I took out a pen to write them down in my notebook, until my stomach growled. I realized I hadn't eaten anything since the afternoon. There was a barbecue restaurant downstairs of the hotel that was still open. My parents and I quickly tidied up and went downstairs to eat barbecue. I was so happy I was almost about to scream after eating the fragrant lamb skewers again. I glanced at my vibrating phone and saw it was another unknown call. Neve really hasn't given up her evil intentions. I've blocked her contact information, but she still found a way to harass me. Greer, you don't want your secrets to be exposed, do you? You don't want your secrets to be exposed online, so find a way to return my ability. I just killed you in my past life out of jealousy, but I didn't expect you to cruelly steal my ability. The end of the world is coming soon. How am I supposed to survive without my ability? You're trying to kill me on purpose, you know. I looked at the text message Neve sent me in disbelief and muttered an insult under my breath. She killed me by accident, but letting her go was actually forcing her to die. People really are so hypocritical, even without powers. What's the problem if I knew the news of the apocalypse in advance? Even without space, getting supplies first would allow me to live better than ordinary people in the apocalypse. I remember what she said before I died last time, and it just feels ridiculous. She only saw the sweet words the men said to me, but couldn't see their despicable behavior. Even eating a pack of instant noodles or drinking a glass of water requires exchanging my body, and she still sees it as flirting. I remember when we were in college, all the guys who wanted to get close to me were blocked by her. She called it being a good friend by helping me find a boyfriend. In high school, she tore up the love letter in my drawer under the excuse of worrying about me dating too early. Everything has a trace to follow. I was still foolishly waiting until I was reborn to realize her true nature. Ignoring the message, I happily finished the barbecue with my parents. I pretended to be a food vlogger and ordered almost 20 portions, asking the boss to deliver them to the upper floor. The barbecue here is delicious. I can stock up for future cravings. After leaving the barbecue restaurant, my mom asked me in confusion why I ordered so much skewers even though I was already full. Mom isn't angry about you spending too much money. It's shameful to waste food, Greer, I smiled mysteriously, confirmed that the hotel had no surveillance, and then put all the skewers I just received into my space. My parents were shocked and couldn't say a word as the skewers disappeared in front of them. Even though I've told them about my ability, they've only heard about it. Experiencing it firsthand is even more fantastic. Dad, Mom, my spatial ability not only allows me to store things, but also keeps food fresh. Whatever I put in there, it comes out the same. The supplies I stocked this afternoon are all in the space. I don't want to keep secrets from the people I'm closest to. My parents shouldn't be kept in the dark. Greer, this is very practical. Even if my parents aren't around anymore, we can be at ease. I immediately rejected my mom's words with ugh. Although your space is very useful, we still need to keep some supplies outside. If one day the space disappears, we won't be too panicked. Although my dad was also excited, he still reminded me, your dad is right, we can't rely entirely on the space. I raised my hand and vowed to use the space responsibly, not to live off the land just because I had powers. With my parents by my side, I slept surprisingly soundly on the first night of my rebirth. After breakfast, I continued driving my small van to do some shopping, while my parents handled the transfer of ownership and went to find a construction company with the money. With the power of money, the construction company sent a team to work, ensuring that the air raid shelter would be renovated to the best possible condition within 30 hours based on the existing materials. The construction workers reinforced the overall structure, added seismic supports, repaired cracks, and did soundproofing and anti-seepage treatment. The entrance was equipped with multiple sealed doors, providing protection against radiation, fire, and theft. A hidden door was left as an emergency exit, installed a filtered ventilation system to prevent gas and dust from entering, separated the living area from the functional area. Under my mother's request, the growing area was equipped with hydroponic facilities. The construction tools also came with a diesel generator and a lot of diesel, as well as an emergency medical kit and common medicines. My parents' construction is in full swing, so I came to the extreme sports specialty store. I bought 10 sets of ski suits and diving suits, as well as many life rings, inflatable boats, and canoes. I also visited several pharmacies and bought enough medicine and health products, because each person can only buy 40 L of gasoline per day. I had to go door to door in the residential areas near the gas station to promote I used to offer extra money to others to buy for me by giving them laundry detergent and eggs. Although I was chased out by a few people thinking I was a scammer, the result was good, and I finally collected 2,000 L of gasoline. Finally, I bought many powerful tools at the hardware store. On the way back, I passed by the pet and fish market. The space cannot support living creatures, but there is a place in the air raid shelter where they can be raised. Under the bosses look as if I were a fool. I bought the fish tank and replaced the ornamental fish with edible crucian carp and grass carp, bought 6 meat rabbits and 20 looting chickens. The supplies are all purchased, and I start to focus on the quality of life. My dad loves drinking alcohol. Buy my favorite junk food and bubble tea. Buy my mom's favorite pastries and cakes. Buy them all. 150 million was all spent, leaving only 3,000. When I returned to the hotel, my parents were still supervising the construction of the air raid shelter. I took out a bag of cucumber-flavored potato chips, opened the tablet to download various movies and novels, and sat with my legs crossed scrolling through my phone. I opened a short video, and the first one that popped up was from Neve. In the video, her hair was messy, her eyes were red and puffy, and she looked very exhausted. She cried, saying she was betrayed by her good friend, who stole her ability. She also said she could predict, and that the end of the world would come in one day. To prove herself, she will go live tomorrow night. Is the blogger reading too many novels? Why talk about the apocalypse and powers? Can you predict? Help me calculate when I will win the lottery. Blogger, I believe you. I knew my safe room and stored supplies would come in handy. 5. Profit. Is the blogger also playing a 4-character game? Except for some apocalypse fans. No one else believes what she said in the comments section. Neve, with a fierce expression, replied under the questioning comments, at 9 p.m. tomorrow, there will be a big drop in temperature across the country. Don't ask why. This kind of mysterious talk still attracted a group of people waiting for updates. Brothers, save a spot. I'm in W City, which is a small furnace. The weather forecast shows the temperature will continue to rise in the next few days. If there's really a big drop in temperature, I'll follow the streamer. Please kick +99. I really want to go to Neve's rented house and kill her right now, with her big mouth. The hot news she's going to reveal in the live stream must be about me. On the first day of my reincarnation, I also thought about informing the country. I'm just an ordinary person who is not well known. Even if I posted an article online, few people would pay attention, and I would be more likely to be called a madman. I don't have a way to directly contact the senior leaders, even if they really believed what I said. With only 3 days left, in the limited time, they couldn't do much. I might very likely become the target of everyone's criticism because of this action, not to mention whether I, who have the ability to access another space, would be dissected for research. Reborn once again. I am very selfish. I just want to be safely with my family, so I decided to go see my good girlfriend. Confirming that the space has all the hemp rope and tools, I called her phone. Neve, after thinking about it, I was wrong. I know how to strip the ability. I'll be at your house in half an hour. You must wait for me. You must wait for me to come and take you. When I opened the car door, the door frame hit my head. I suddenly thought, since the space can only store inanimate objects, does that mean living things put into it will also die? I looked at the quail in the back seat. I grabbed one and mentally commanded to put it into the space. The quail indeed disappeared. Inside the space, I indeed saw the body of a quail. There are still 19 quails left. The number is unlucky. I'll just make it a whole number. I took out a stick from the space. This time, I didn't try to catch it with my hands, but instead touched it with the stick. The little chicken was also taken into the space, and it had no sign of life. So this space is not just a hidden weapon that kills without a trace. How foolish must Neve have been in her previous life to have such a powerful weapon in her hands, yet be tied up and used as a granary. The guess was confirmed. I felt very confident. As long as the opponent doesn't have the truth, it's almost impossible for them to counterattack me. I suddenly lost my drowsiness and felt very excited. The drive that was originally 30 minutes only took 20 minutes to reach the building of Neve's rental. Neve rented a small, old, and dilapidated house in the city's slums, and the house had poor sound insulation. As I was about to knock on the door, I heard voices from inside. My girlfriend will come in a while. Blaze, you'll definitely like her. You promised, so you can't back out. Also, what I said about the apocalypse is real. A giggling sound came from behind the door, so I've already been sold. Blaze was a member of that perverted squad from the previous life. They posed as a civilian rescue team, looting supplies from every survivor. The elderly and children were directly killed, and males who refused to join met the same fate. Girls, especially the beautiful ones, were treated as breeding pigs, with no dignity at all. 6. This Blaze is a hardened criminal just released from prison, and the end of the world is like a paradise for someone like him. I didn't expect to have an unexpected gain this time. I knocked on the door, and after a brief commotion inside, Neve came to open it. Greer, why did you come so quickly? Come inside. Neve seemed to have forgotten how she threatened me yesterday, and she greeted me with a smiling face. Aren't you going to bring the person inside to greet me? I crossed my arms, expressionless, and showed no intention of going in. Blaze, who had been hiding in the shadows observing me, was already eager to act upon seeing me. Now that he was discovered, he was fearless. He was a notorious criminal who had escaped for over a decade after committing multiple crimes. So what was there to fear about a young girl? Brothers, the girl is already impatient, so we shouldn't be shy. Come out, everyone. As the words finished, 5 people popped out from the wardrobe, the bathroom, and the kitchen. They were all strangers. But if they can hang out with this scumbag Blaze, what good things could they be? I saw a group of people coming towards me with sticks. Blaze at the front was looking me up and down under the light. First he looked at my face, then my figure, and then my face and figure again. He nodded with great satisfaction. Guys, this girl is good. Let me have some fun first. Okay, the subordinates didn't dare to say no. After all, the boss eats the meat, and they drink the soup later. That's the rule on the street. They stood on both sides in a menacing way, ready to attack me if I resisted. Saying that, Blaze reached out to wrap his arm around my waist and pull me into the house. I sidestepped and quickly closed the door, taking out an iron rod from the space. I struck the several people like a drunkard's boxing style. I kept thinking about recalling the space. The whole process took less than 15 seconds, and Blaze and his henchmen, who had tormented me for a year in my previous life, were lying on the ground as corpses in my space. Neve was stunned. She couldn't understand how I had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Shouldn't it have been me being humiliated and bound as a tool for stockpiling supplies? Just like in her previous life, I held the iron rod in my hand and looked at her with gratitude. Neve's legs gave way, and she fell to her knees, bowing repeatedly to me. Greer, please let me go. I know I'm wrong. I won't target you anymore. You can be sure I won't tell anyone your secret. A person cannot cry when extremely afraid. She didn't realize she was wrong. She was just afraid of dying. But only the dead can keep secrets, right? I had a change of heart and told Neve, you asked me why I could make them disappear. Thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, how could I have obtained the space to be reborn, and then killed them with it? I took the body out of the space and showed it to her. Now you know. You can rest in peace. Before Neve could beg, I put her into the space as well. Cut the grass. Don't leave the roots, or it will grow again with the spring wind. Getting rid of the troublemaker gives me peace of mind. Thinking back to the previous life, Neve could easily take out supplies and crush me. Then I could also store some heavy items in the space as a backup. As long as the area is open enough, I wouldn't even need to get my hands dirty to deal with those terrorists. 7. I drove to the abandoned parking lot. I collected a lot of scrapped big trucks and small cars. In terms of weight, the truck's tonnage is definitely sufficient. When I returned to the hotel, I received a message from my parents saying they were taking turns resting in the air raid shelter while watching the workers construct, and they wouldn't be back tonight. They also reminded me to rest well and come directly at noon tomorrow. I checked the supplies in my space to make sure nothing was missing. When I woke up in the morning, I spent all the remaining 3,000 or so to buy a bunch of breakfast. Check out of the hotel and meet your parents in the air raid shelter. The air raid shelter is built on the mountain and was originally used as a shelter for emergency protection. It cost a lot of money to reinforce. It can be said to be as solid as a fortress. When I arrived, the construction team had already cleaned up the renovation waste and left. My father and mother were cleaning. The entrance is large enough for me to drive my van in. I took out warm steamed buns and soy milk with fried dough sticks to offer breakfast to my parents. Then I checked the facilities of the air raid shelter. The inside of the shelter is 3 meters high, 5 meters wide, and 70 meters long. It runs horizontally inside the mountain from the entrance. The left side is planned as the living area, with 2 bedrooms, then the kitchen, living room, and bathroom. The right side is the work area, with a monitoring room, storage room, planting area, and breeding area. I took some non-perishable vegetables, dry food, and drinking water from the space and put them in the storage room. I and my father drained the water from the water tank and carried it to the car, then installed it in the breeding area. The meat and the Lu-Ding chickens have strong adaptability and are jumping around lively in the fence. After our family did a thorough cleaning, we took out thick blankets and quilts, and waited for the arrival of the extreme cold apocalypse. It is the end of May, and for most areas, the temperature has started to rise. In southern regions, even some people have already started wearing shorts and short sleeves, so on the day of the big temperature drop, they were the most unfortunate. Many people were sleeping with air conditioners and fans on, and died from the cold, after we had a home-cooked meal in the evening. We sat in the living room scrolling through our phones and chatting. At around 8 p.m., a sudden drop in temperature began in Heilongjiang, dropping from 3 degrees to minus 30 degrees within half an hour. Then, the cold wave continued to attack, crossing the Qinling Mountains and moving southward. Even in the southern Cheong Island, the temperature dropped from 17 degrees to minus 20 degrees. People rushed to take out their winter quilts from the bottom of the wardrobe. They rummaged through the boxes to find their down jackets and put them on. They turned the air conditioner to heating. I watched the short video platform, and on Neve's account, a group of people called her a genius. They urged her to go live, asked her what they should do, how long the cold snap would last, etc. Unfortunately, they would not have to wait much longer. However, with Neve's forecast, many people realized that this cold snap was not ordinary. Wearing a down jacket to the supermarket to stock up on supplies, the weather forecast on the mobile phone showed that the temperature for the next 15 days had turned into a low temperature warning. 8. The news broadcast also urgently reported that a cold wave was coming, reminding the public to stock up on supplies and not to go out unless necessary. Companies and schools also released notices of work and school suspension overnight. The temperature continued to drop until it stabilized at minus 50 degrees at 4 a.m. People with IP addresses in the island region posted videos showing heavy snowfall in their local area on short video platforms. In the northeastern province, even hail as big as eggs began to fall. Cars parked on the roadside were all affected. People who went out to stock up on supplies were all knocked down by the hail and could not get up again. The worst off were those trapped on highways, trains, and airplanes. Trains are suspended, flights are grounded, and there are countless reports of plane crashes on the news. Along with the widespread cold snap, there is also snowfall. All visible objects on the ground are covered with snow, pure white snow, yet it makes everyone feel cold to the bone. I know, this is just the beginning. If we don't go out to look for supplies today, it will only get harder later. Mom and Dad are very upset watching the disaster scenes reported on the news. They can sit by the fireplace, drinking hot milk tea, all thanks to my daughter. The air raid shelter has good ventilation. Burning charcoal for warmth will not cause carbon monoxide poisoning. Mom gave me a jewelry box, filled with gold jewelry. Dear, these are the dowry we have saved for you every year since you were born, and all the family's assets are here, no matter when. Gold is always a hard currency. You need to take good care of it. Being a parent, you should plan for the future. I held the heavy jewelry box, and my mother held me in her arms. The outdoor temperature has reached minus 43 degrees, and the indoor temperature can still be kept around 10 degrees. I also brought my parents 2 thick blankets for preparation. We couldn't sleep all night, and later I used my cuteness and coaxed them into going to the bedroom to rest. The backup power supply of the air raid shelter is used bit by bit. We all know it's not yet time to turn on the air conditioner. It snowed all night. And many community property management companies arranged owners to start shoveling snow. I laid down oilcloth around the entrance and ventilation openings last night. As long as you touch the oilcloth, you can collect all the snow into the space. Melted snow can still be used to flush the toilet and water the fields. The most important thing is saving the labor of 3 people in the family. I put on my down jacket, hat, gloves, and goggles, and went out to collect snow. Even so, going out still made me feel the cold seeping into my bones. I opened the door quietly, but my parents still woke up from their sleep. After finishing, I quickly closed the door, but after being outside for a while, the cold on my clothes condensed into water. My parents told me to go rest, and they started to prepare food in the kitchen. Mom planned to make more steamed buns, baozi, and dumplings, and also some fresh noodles, storing them in the freezer so that when the weather gets colder and we don't feel like cooking, we can take them out to eat. The frozen foods I stocked up on are considered pre-made meals by my parents, which they think are unhealthy. Dad planted radishes and lettuce in the planting area, and used the old outer leaves of the cabbages to feed the rabbits. The rhubarb chicken is great. It laid 2 nests of eggs on the first day of moving to the new home, after staying up all night. I let my guard down and fell asleep comfortably on the soft and warm bed. When I woke up, it was already 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The filling made by Dad, the buns wrapped by Mom, gave off an enticing aroma in the steamer. I washed my hands and took a hot bun and stuffed it into my mouth. The skin was thin, the filling was full, and there was plenty of juice. Still my favorite cumin onion beef filling. In my previous life, I was trapped in a hotel, and in order to survive, I could only drink snow water and eat frozen food every day. Happiness is largely a result of comparison. After lunch, Dad went to the monitoring room for duty, and my mom and I followed the blogger on the tablet to learn to do the 8 brocades. In order to survive in the apocalypse, you must have a good body. We had a hot pot of braised rib chicken for lunch, with side dishes of potatoes, dried beans, and old tofu. Tofu is soaked in the broth, and the potatoes are soft and tender. 9. About to take a nap, Through the monitor, I saw a group of people lingering near the air raid shelter. This family must know something. That's why they paid extra to build the shelter. I saw the gate was closed, so there must be people inside. The bald middle-aged man speaking was the construction worker from 2 days ago. He was with several workers and their accompanying family members. Each of them was as solid as a bear. They all lived in the town below the mountain. After yesterday's big temperature drop, his son told him that an online prophecy master had revealed the coming of the end of the world. There wasn't much stored food at home, nor any cold weather supplies. Moreover, his son was right. After the power, water, and internet went down, everyone would be forced into a dead end, and there would definitely be looting and violence. If you know there are fat pigs, you should act first. Otherwise, by the time others realize, you might not even get a hair of the pig. Bald remembered when the couple who came to supervise the construction accidentally let slip that they had another daughter. There were only 3 people in the shelter in total. They had more than 20 people and brought professional door-breaking tools. As long as they broke in, they could take over the place. Dad's eyes were sharp. He recognized the bald man from the surveillance camera. Greer, he's the worker who came for the construction the day before. I didn't expect him to come back with so many people the next day. Mom also worriedly held my hand, looking worried. What should we do? If they left a backup key during the renovation, we would be in danger. I opened the ventilation window on the door, took out the slingshot from the space, held a steel marble, and aimed at Bald. Then I let go, shooting it at a tree half a meter away. This was the first warning. If he and his people retreated, I didn't want to take it too far in front of my parents. I didn't expect the bald guy to be fearless. When his trace was exposed, he immediately called his fellow workers over to prepare to force the door open. I collected the snow to prevent being blocked in, but it actually provided them with convenience. Since you want to die so much, I'll grant your wish. The 4 people approached the door and opened their toolbox to start removing it. Through the door's surveillance camera, I saw them leaning against the door, each of them having contact with it. I simply used my mind to pull the 4 people through the iron door into the space, then instantly released their corpses. My parents saw my move and became so nervous that they stammered a bit. Greer, in the future, when your parents hold you, you need to control your thoughts. I felt a bit helpless. My parents didn't blame me for being cold-blooded after seeing my daughter kill someone in front of them. Dad saw what I was thinking and became serious. Dear daughter, it's the end of the world, and we can't be sentimental. If you hadn't acted, they wouldn't have let us go either. Neither Mom nor I will blame you. Okay, 10. Dad's broad hand brushed my head, giving me a sincere lecture. The women and children waiting outside the outer circle were in disbelief, rubbing their eyes. Had they just imagined it? Why did it feel like their husband had just vanished for a second and then collapsed? Strange. Could it be that there's a spirit or a demon living in there? A group of people pushed and shoved each other, trying to send someone to check if the bald man was dead. I've already given them a chance, but they didn't cherish it. Several abandoned trucks are dropped from the space towards the crowd. Wails keep rising, until the sounds become weaker and weaker. I open the door and bring the toolbox into the space. I didn't look again at the people crushed by the trucks. They were all old people, children, and women, in freezing cold weather, and with injuries. They could not possibly survive. In the following days, the temperature keeps getting lower. Even Cheong Island reached -60 degrees. The time of snowfall is getting longer, and the snow is accumulating faster than people can shovel it. Most families don't have goggles, and more people are suffering from snow blindness. The authorities acted quickly, opening many relief bases on the 3rd day of the big temperature drop, but the heavy snow blocked the roads. What used to take half a day by car now takes at least half a month to walk with the whole family. This was still lucky, not dying on the way. It can be seen that exiling to Ninguda in ancient times was a very severe punishment, before the internet completely collapsed. A short biography reads Son of the Heavenly Palace, and the avatar is blank. A blogger uploaded a video on the website. The content is extremely ostentatious. In a golden and magnificent villa, a fireplace is burning with a warm flame. When everyone had no extra food, the young master fed the dog with leftover steak, soaking in a huge hot spring pool. Next to him are models in bikini feeding grapes to each other mouth to mouth. At the end, the young master seems unsatisfied, walks to the basement, and shows a full warehouse of supplies. The account was deleted 5 minutes after the video was posted, but the netizens didn't forget. Someone recorded the screen and saved it, and then publicly collected the blogger's information online. When many people add firewood, the flame rises high. Within an hour, the young master's home address and family background were completely exposed. The comment section was full of netizens shouting to go to his house to ask for alms. Scared, Those bloggers who had previously posted pictures and text secretly with a sense of superiority all fled and deleted their accounts overnight. No matter what environment, there will always be such foolish people. The criminals went to great lengths, but they couldn't match their quick thinking. It must be said, the efficiency of netizens is fast. The next morning, more than 2,000 people organized themselves to surround the young master's villa. More people kept coming. Some had axes. Some had hammers and chainsaws, and others even had compound bows. When the villa security system activated and the electric grid turned on, it only stunned a batch of people, but those who were breaking the walls had put on insulated gloves. There were guards inside the walls continuously shooting arrows, trying to repel these rioters, but there were just too many people. The guards ran out of bullets. But the people still didn't decrease. It was as if they couldn't be killed. The person with the compound bow took the opportunity when the guards were reloading and shot an arrow straight through someone's head. This boosted the morale of the rioters. Someone cut down the trees on both sides of the road, dried them to make simple ladders. The people who went in first opened the villa gate, and then everyone rushed in. When they broke into the villa, they happened to see a group of people in luxurious clothes gathering gold bars, preparing to escape through the underground passage. The thugs were fired up, and at this moment, they were even more bloodshot. Why do they work their whole lives and still can't earn a fraction of what these people have? The son they protected was born into wealth and luxury. The whole family was hacked beyond recognition, including the dog that appeared in the video. Maybe it's the end of the world in extreme cold, no one is working, and such bloody videos can still be uploaded to the platform. I looked at the salty tofu pudding covered in red oil in the bowl, and I couldn't bring myself to eat it. Half a month of extreme cold, most areas experienced power and water outages. The official base received more refugees than the reasonable number, 11, a 30 square meter small shelter. 20 people were living and eating inside. The official announced the suspension of receiving refugees, but they promised to send troops to drop supplies, so people should not lose hope. My parents and I live in a spacious air raid shelter, and we just sleep all day as long as we have enough to eat and drink. Some groups of people who are not wise enough tried to target us, but they were all taken into my spatial pocket. I threw all the corpses on the path to the shelter, and those who are sensible will avoid taking that route until March of the following year. The extreme cold was still raging. My mother used to be a history teacher, and I was worried she might get bored, so I took out the books I bought when I took the supplies. Unexpectedly, my mother became addicted to time travel novels, criticizing the authors for not respecting history, yet she was completely engrossed, feeling heartbroken by the heroine's suffering. My father, who is usually strong, has been a bit melancholic. I took out the skiing equipment from my spatial pocket and occasionally went skiing with my father. The breeding area in the air raid shelter has already formed a scale. There are hydroponic green lettuce, watermelons, and tomatoes, as well as cabbages and potatoes growing well in the soil. For meat, rabbits have been reproducing, giving birth to more than 70 baby rabbits in half a year. Dad made them into spicy and numbing rabbit slices to go with his drinking. The stockpiled supplies are plenty, so our family doesn't have to be frugal with food. For breakfast, we have buns or small dumplings, and drink soy milk. Lunch is a standard home-style stir-fry with 4 dishes and a soup. In the afternoon, we can have a snack with some desserts and drink some milk tea. Not having to go to work and being able to stay at home reasonably is simply too good for a homebody. On April 28th, the temperature finally started to rise. Within just 2 days, the temperature rose from -50 to 0°. On the third day, it directly increased to 30°, the snow melted quickly, and the country began a new round of heatwave and flood disaster. The city's drainage system could not cope, and low-lying homes were flooded, while low-lying rural areas turned into a sea of water. My parents and I changed the thick blankets to a bamboo mat, took off our down jackets, and put on short sleeves. When it's cold, you can just wear more to keep warm, but when it's hot, even if you wear less, you still feel uncomfortable. Even leftover food had to be stored in the refrigerator, otherwise it would spoil the same day. When the temperature outside the air raid shelter reached 50°, I was cooling off with the air conditioner, enjoying my mom's chilled mung bean soup. The high temperature caused various animals and plants to rot, and the flood spread the virus everywhere. Clean sources of drinking water have become the most sought-after resource. A person can survive without food, but not without water, and will not live more than 7 days, especially in high temperatures. Being without water for 3 days could lead to severe dehydration. Many survivors who endured the extreme cold did not make it. Fortunately, it seems that the heavens do not want to exterminate humanity. The high temperature apocalypse lasted only a month, and then the temperature returned to normal levels. Authorities began to vigorously recover bodies, carry out disinfection, and search for survivors. The national cohesion deeply rooted in the Chinese people tightly united every compatriot. By August, all cities in the third tier and above had completed disinfection and post-disaster reconstruction. Every surviving individual can apply for a set of housing. My parents and I were directly allocated a large apartment in the city of New York because we actively participated in the disaster relief. Story 2. In a post-apocalyptic world, the heroine of the story, driven by a surge of kindness, secretly steals a life-saving potion to rescue a stranger. This act causes her sister, who is in desperate need of the antidote, to suffer immensely, ultimately turning into a zombie and being killed. Meanwhile, the gentle and seemingly innocent heroine gains both fame and adoration for her good deed, becoming the darling of the group. Confronted with accusations, Snow tearfully buries herself in the hero's embrace, her face flushed with tears. I just wanted to save someone. Is it wrong to be kind? It's just an antidote. I can compensate you with a new one. In her apparent distress, she cunningly pushes me into a horde of zombies when I'm not looking. When I open my eyes, I find myself back to the moment before Snow stole the potion. In this life, I use my seemingly useless abilities to turn the tables and crush our protagonist's halo. Step by step, life is just that. I'll compensate you with a new one in your next life, on the dark, blood-stained wasteland. Zombies gnaw on fresh human flesh. The day I died was celebrated across the world. After much effort, I discovered who had stolen the potion years ago and, with a resolve to face death, I sought justice from Snow. By then, her past brave act had already made her a top researcher at the post-apocalyptic base. Even after the truth came out, people fiercely defended her, angrily rebuking me. Miss Snow is a researcher at the base. She has made such significant contributions to humanity. Why should she apologize to you, making such a fuss over a bottle of potion and seeking revenge? Is it necessary? Can't you have a broader perspective like Snow? What benefits are you trying to gain from her? I've seen many who exploit their relatives for profit. Snow, the true culprit, was fiercely protected by others. Facing the accusations, she looked extremely innocent, her almond eyes brimming with tears. Ella, whether you believe it or not, I didn't do it on purpose. I just wanted to save someone. Is it wrong to be kind? If I could go back, I would still save that child. I couldn't just watch him die. I had no other choice. I can compensate you for the antidote. I'll give you anything you want, as long as you can forgive me. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt, her nose turning red and her eyes moist with tears, which rolled down her soft cheeks like pearls off a broken string. As the protagonist of this post-apocalyptic story, she always portrayed herself as noble and pure. I sneered, my eyes filled with hatred as I shouted, compensate for the antidote. Will that bring my sister back to life? Is that child's life valuable, and my sister's is not? You know you climbed to where you are today by stealing my sister's life-saving medicine, yet you still play the innocent. Remembering the dark bloodstains in the basement, my hatred surged, and I trembled uncontrollably under my overwhelming condemnation. Snow forced a grim smile, her teeth biting into her tender lips. Before everyone, she suddenly bent her knees, attempting to kneel before me. Yes, it's all my fault. My desire to save people is to blame. Am I not cold-blooded enough for you? If it doesn't satisfy you, shall I kneel and kowtow to you? But before she could fully kneel, a domineering man by her side stopped her. This man, Rylan, the leader of the base and the strongest human with supernatural abilities in this post-apocalyptic decade, already shared a blissful and complete love with her. Rylan, radiating a cold aura, tenderly embraced the sobbing girl into his arms. Fool, being bullied and not asking brother for help, why so stubborn? He gently patted her back and tenderly kissed the tears from Snow's cheeks, yet when he looked at me, it was as if he was looking at a corpse. With a detached superiority, he casually conjured a blaze of lightning in his palm. Have you caused enough trouble? No one to stop, my woman. No one has the right to make her kneel. A sudden surge of purple lightning coursed through my body, and I could smell the searing flesh on me. My limbs were numb and immovable, the intense pain nearly shattering my sanity. I was defenseless, my powers weak, so very weak. Just as he was about to continue, Snow, sobbing in his arms, stopped him. Her delicate, beautiful fingers grabbed the hem of his shirt as she blinked her eyes coyly and said softly, Rylan, I don't want your hands to be stained with blood for my sake. I can't live under your protection forever. I need to learn to grow. You're right. I can't stay weak anymore. After saying this, she took a deep breath as if to muster courage, closed her eyes, and with trembling hands, pushed me hard towards the city wall. In an instant, I was overwhelmed by a horde of howling zombies. My flesh was torn and devoured bit by bit, and in a daze, I thought I saw my sister's figure appear. As death approached, cheers erupted from atop the city wall. It was in this moment I realized that this world was a post-apocalyptic romance, and Rylan and Snow were the protagonists of the story. The dark and mad version of me was just a minor villain destined to die in their legendary tale. Naturally, the villain's death at the hands of the heroes was cause for universal celebration. Today is March 21st of the new era, year 1, 6:0 a.m. The smell of dust filled the dim basement, and the base's time announcement woke me from unconsciousness, rubbing my throbbing temples. I abruptly sat up from the ground. Next to me on the narrow cot, a frail figure was gasping weakly, "Sister." It hurt so much. The 5-year-old girl looked pale and bluish, her cheeks hollow, her consciousness seeming blurred. I watched the scene in a daze, feeling somewhat surreal. My sister, didn't she die 10 years ago? The buzzing of the walkie-talkie snapped me back to reality, and I looked down to check it. A brief message was recorded. Mission Hall, retrieve antidote, retrieve the antidote. The agony of being torn apart by zombies just before dying was still haunting me. Sending chills through me, I immediately realized that I had been reborn 10 years earlier, back to that nightmarish point in time. Today, the female lead Snow would misuse her authority to steal my antidote to save a stranger. Today, my sister would become a zombie and be mercilessly killed due to the loss of the antidote. Luna, hang in there, wait for your sister to come back. I hugged my sister tightly and kissed her feverish forehead. Then, without bothering to dress properly, I rushed out of the basement as fast as I could. It was 6:0 a.m., and there was still time. I had to get that antidote. At 6:40 a.m., breathless, I rushed to the entrance of the mission hall. To my surprise, I saw a petite and delicate figure sneaking in, dressed in a simple lab coat, her pale face filled with anxiety, with almond-shaped eyes beneath crescent eyebrows and a baby-fat cheek with a shallow dimple. She looked like a naive beauty. It was Snow. She confidently moved towards the hall's safe, her fingers trembling nervously as she entered the password. Please, please, dear God, let the medicine not be taken by anyone else. That little boy is so pitiful, I must save him. Hearing this, my heart filled with hatred surged uncontrollably, and I instinctively gripped the long knife in my sleeve, wanting to rush in. No, it wasn't time yet. At the last moment, I restrained myself and instead picked up a pebble from the roadside and threw it hard at the windowsill. The sharp alarm rang out, and Snow, like a startled innocent rabbit, took a few steps back. When the person in charge sleepily ran out, she quickly pretended to look normal again. Researcher Snow, what brings you here so early? The person in charge didn't suspect she was there to steal, thinking there was some urgent task at the research institute. Snow, not good at lying but remembering her promise to help a mother and son get the antidote, clenched her fists and silently cheered herself on. Good morning, Director. The Research Institute needs to use the antidote stored here. Just one bottle. I didn't bring the official request document. Give me a break this time. I'll make it up on my next visit, she said with a harmless smile, her lips curving slightly in the silent hall. In the post-apocalyptic base, the Research Institute wielded significant authority. The person in charge nodded and turned to open the safe. However, his brow furrowed when he retrieved the only bottle of pale green potion inside. Researcher Snow, we've received only one bottle of this potion today, he said. According to the registry, it's owned by Ella, a Class C citizen of the base. Even if you have a directive, you can't transfer it. Upon hearing she couldn't obtain it, Snow's eyes widened in shock. Misty and on the verge of tears, she lowered her head sadly, her slender fingers nervously twisting the hem of her garment. But, Director, please, I'm begging you, the Research Institute needs it for a very important purpose. If we delay, no one can afford the consequences. Maybe Ella isn't in a hurry to use it. I can replace the potion for you tomorrow. She won't notice, moved by her earnest pleas. The director finally, though reluctantly, handed her the potion. All right, but remember. Hello, I'm here to pick up the potion. At that critical moment, I stepped into the hall, interrupting their conversation. The pale green liquid in the transparent glass bottle swayed as it landed in my hands. Snow gasped softly and frowned slightly in irritation. Who are you? Oh, I'm Ella. I presented my identification, signed the registry, and left without a backward glance. The process was smooth and decisive. Snow chased after me, grabbing the corner of my shirt with her delicate hand, her cheeks turning red as she stammered, trying to use the same excuses she had on the director, our institute. The cold blade of a knife suddenly dropped. Snow recoiled, her face pale and her eyes brimming with tears when she met my fierce gaze. To tell you the truth, she said, there's a child in the base who's been bitten by a zombie. I wanted your potion, to save him. She held her head high as she spoke, as if she were a noble savior. You see, even in a world full of deceit, Snow, the stereotypical gentle and sweet protagonist, remains as pristine as a sheet of white paper. She always goes out of her way to help others at any cost. But what does that have to do with me? Get lost. I walked past her with an expressionless face, suppressing the intense urge to lash out, and quickly left. The moment I pushed open the door, my heart nearly leapt to my throat. Dreading to witness the gruesome scene from a past life, Fortunately, it wasn't to be. My sister Luna was still lying quietly on her clean little bed. Her breath was shallow. She barely managed to open her eyes when she heard me. "Sister, I'm back. Luna, it's okay now." I held her frail body in my arms and injected the potion into her carotid artery. Visibly, the ashen pallor on her tiny face began to fade. Luna's breathing steadied and she slowly drifted into a deep sleep. The antibodies in the potion were devouring the zombie virus in her body, and soon, she would recover. Lying in my arms, the sister I had lost for 10 years still felt somewhat unreal. In the dim light, I leaned down to touch my face to her forehead, quietly feeling her warm breath. I had succeeded. Pain seared through my shoulder. Only then did I realize that my wound had reopened, the blood soaking my clothes. But this pain was nothing compared to being devoured by a horde of zombies because of Snow's betrayal in a previous life. This time, I wanted to see how things would unfold without my potion paving the way. How can Snow climb step by step to the pinnacle of life? Having been reborn, I must become stronger at all costs. I need to protect Luna. Whether it's Snow or Rylan, I must eliminate them. I don't want to peacefully seek justice. I want to avenge Luna, and avenge myself who died unjustly. Knock. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there's an urgent knocking from outside the basement. I carefully tuck my sleeping sister back into bed, making sure the covers are snug, before I get up with a furrowed brow to answer the door. Is something the matter? The light in the basement is dim, but the silhouettes of 3 people in the narrow hallway are clearly visible. "Miss Ella, I beg you to save my child. He's still so young. He will truly die if you don't share the medicine. Should I kneel before you? Please have mercy on us." Mother and son, a strange woman, holding a child of about 7 or 8 years old, kneels rigidly on the ground, looking up at me with tears streaming down her face. Behind them stands Snow. Clearly, she brought this mother and son, bitten by zombies, to my door. "Ella, this is a precious life. How can you bear it? I'm a researcher at the base. Consider this medicine as a debt I owe you." "Okay. I'll compensate you in a few days. How about 2 bottles, Ella? Please hand it over. You're not that cold-hearted, right?" In her urgency, her voice grows loud, attracting the attention of others in the underground living area. I frown and raise my hand to close the iron door, worried that my sleeping sister might be disturbed. Snow's words, both sincere and moving, sway the onlookers, but my heart remains unmoved. I have only 1 bottle of medicine, a bottle meant to save my sister. I owe no one. Playing moral blackmail with me, she's too naive. The narrow corridor is filled with a dense murmur of discussions, with some boldly speaking up for Snow. "Give her the medicine. The researcher Snow said she would compensate you. The young girl is begging so desperately. It would be wrong not to help now. Don't be too indifferent. Everyone faces tough times." The crowd's overlapping voices leave me no chance to refuse. I raise an eyebrow, clear my throat, and pull out the empty medicine bottle from my space, throwing it directly at Snow. "Sorry, I am that cold-hearted. The medicine has been used. Instead of wasting time here, you'd better look elsewhere." Snow is caught off guard and fails to catch it, the thin glass bottle hitting the ground with a crisp sound. It's indeed empty, not a drop left. Seeing this, the woman beside her holding the child breaks down. "Bitch, you actually used the medicine. This was the medicine researcher Snow promised to get me, you damn thief. Give it back to me. You killed my child. I'll kill you." The woman throws the unconscious child in a corner, her eyes filled with rage as she screams and rushes toward me. But suddenly, the unexpected happens. The child, like a fish struggling on the brink of death, arches and trembles, convulses a few times, then suddenly gets up. He fiercely leaps onto the woman's back, biting through her throat. The onlookers, mocking and jeering, fail to escape and are bitten, one by one transforming. The growls echo through the dim, cramped basement, turning the corridor into a bloody inferno. The alarm sounds, and the base's guard team enters with guns drawn. As I'm escorted away by the guards, Snow suddenly raises her beautiful eyes to look at me, her gaze sharp with endless disappointment. She tilts her delicate chin up, standing on a moral high ground to judge and condemn me. "They were killed by you. If you had initially agreed to use the medicine to save that child, nothing will happen. Are you satisfied now?" After she spoke, she glanced at me disdainfully like a proud and pure white swan and left. My gaze lingered on the slender curve of her neck as she walked away, so fragile, a gentle squeeze could break it. Unfortunately, I can't kill her yet. After dying in my previous life, I didn't immediately reincarnate. Instead, I wandered the apocalyptic ruins as a soul for a few more years. The author's grand finale only covered up to the 10th year of the apocalypse, where the male and female leads established the strongest human base. However, by the 13th year of the apocalypse, I witnessed the human species reaching its historical end. In this desperate struggle against the zombies, humanity was utterly defeated. The moment Snow died at the hands of the zombies, the whole world collapsed into nothingness. The timeline reset. And the plot returned to a critical moment in the protagonist's growth, the stealing of a medicine to save someone, coincidentally. I was reborn at the same moment, retaining my memories. If Snow's death is crucial, then killing her now would surely cause a collapse in the space-time continuum. All of this is predicated on the assumption that Snow is the protagonist. What if I could sever all her opportunities? Would that break her protagonist's halo? At that point, would I be able to kill her to avenge Luna and myself? For hours after taking the medicine, the zombie virus inside Luna was completely eradicated. Sister, you're back. She slowly woke up and climbed out of bed, clinging to my arm and acting coquettishly. Luna just turned 5 this year, her large watery eyes set in a tiny face, her eyebrows curved, making her look very delicate and adorable. Technically, Luna isn't my sister by blood. She's an orphan I found on the road during the apocalypse. I encountered her in a supermarket, where she timidly peered at me from behind a corner shelf, so I took her with me, and she became Luna. Luna, are you hungry? Come eat some noodles. I raised my hand to ruffle her soft short hair and kissed her forehead. On the table was a freshly made bowl of instant noodles, to which I had added water, boiled an egg, and put in some sausage, just before serving. I stuffed several slices of beef into it to nourish the child. As a space manipulator, I never lacked supplies. Luna obediently held the bowl, picked up some noodles and an egg with her chopsticks, blew on them, and then held them up to my mouth. Sister, eat. Okay. I propped my cheek with my hand, smiling quietly as I watched her eat, occasionally accepting her feeding, but thinking about the plan ahead. A tinge of sourness uncontrollably surged in my heart. Luna can't stay with me. She must leave. If I remain weak and confined, I won't have the strength to protect her in the apocalypse. If I am determined to become stronger and seek revenge, countless dangers will inevitably come my way in the future, and Luna, being my weakness, would certainly become a target for my enemies. I can't bear the pain of losing her again, so I have to make a choice. In my past life, while searching for the medicine, I accidentally found the whereabouts of Luna's biological parents. The couple had unfortunately been separated from their daughter during their escape and later settled in a Western base, entering the military's upper echelons. They have been desperately searching for their child for 10 years, never giving up. I believe Luna would be 100 times safer with them than with me. The small basement was very quiet, only the intermittent sound of the little girl slurping noodles. Luna, how about I send you back to your mom and dad? I turned my head away from the last roll of noodles in the bowl and suddenly spoke. Unexpectedly, Luna remained calm throughout and did not lose control as I had imagined. She stubbornly stuffed the noodles into my mouth. Then with a serious expression on her tender white face, she nodded. Okay, Luna. A pair of thin little hands cupped my face, clumsily wiping the cold tears from my cheeks. I don't want to be a burden to you. Sister, I'll wait for you at the Western base, sister. You have to come pick me up. I was slightly taken aback, but seeing Luna's tired eyes, I held back my words. The farewell was too calm, eerily calm. After she fell asleep, I hugged the child in my arms tightly and gently kissed her forehead. The long night that followed was sleepless, the Western base, but I hadn't told her that her parents were at the Western base. Early the next day before dawn, I took Luna to the headquarters of the base. Over the past few days, military forces from the 4 major bases, North, South, East, and West, had gathered to exchange deployment experiences. Upon learning Luna's identity, the people from the Western base immediately agreed to ensure her safe departure. I playfully winked at her as we said goodbye, and secretly slipped a small backpack into her arms filled with her favorite snacks, canned fruits, canned meats, and milk drinks. It was only after the military vehicle completely left through the gates of the northern base that I turned and hurried towards the trading market. Today, something very important was going to happen. The trading market at the northern base was vast, where the currency was mission points. Of course, bartering was also acceptable for transactions. Food, drinking water, daily necessities, and clothing made up the majority of the goods here, while medicines and weapons were extremely scarce. Luxuries like jewelry, furniture, antiques, and cosmetics were considered useless trash that nobody cared about. At this moment, however, this market concealed the heroine's golden opportunity. In her previous life, Snow had managed to become a top-level researcher not just because of her kindness and sweetness. Her 2 biggest advantages were her evolved ability partner, Rylan, and a space jade pendant she obtained in exchange for 2 bags of instant noodles. Having a storage space was like having a spatial ability, and even more rare was the spring inside it that could dilute the zombie virus. This was a public secret, known to all. The base's research institute saw Snow as a savior, hoping she could use the spring to create a real antidote to end the apocalypse. However, even in the 13th year, humanity was still fighting zombies on the wasteland. She had not succeeded. Snow had obtained the jade pendant at the trading market of the northern base. Coincidentally, on the day the four bases ended their exchanges, I disguised myself and made an effort to blend into the bustling market. The daily transaction rate here was high, and many people covered their identity somewhat to avoid being targeted for robbery or worse. I mingled in the crowd, carefully searching for the jade pendant I had once seen around Snow's neck, so I occasionally stopped at various stalls, occasionally spending a few points on some food to make my purpose less obvious. As for Snow buying the jade pendant before me, that wouldn't happen, because I had submitted a complaint to the Research Institute overnight, accusing her of abusing her authority by attempting to use medication privately and leaking information about the recipients. The current head of the Research Institute was famously conservative and followed pre-apocalypse management practices with strict rules, so Snow was called in for an inquiry early in the morning and wouldn't be out for half a day. This wool sweater is of excellent quality, just 10 points, beef cans with 3 more years of shelf life, 3 points each, super affordable multigrain buns, 1 point for 3. I walked several rounds in the trading market, many were selling but I still found nothing. Could it be that only the heroine could obtain this golden opportunity? No, I didn't believe that, suppressing the irritation inside. I walked more meticulously through the market, not missing any chance. Check out this ancestral jewelry jade pendant, very affordable. Suddenly, a weak and fleeting hawker's call caught my attention. I abruptly stopped, sharply focusing my gaze on an inconspicuous corner stall. There it was, the stallholder, a frail 60-year-old man named Mountain, clearly hadn't eaten for days and was dizzy with hunger. He was desperately guarding a few simple pieces of jewelry on a red cloth, occasionally calling out weakly, but everyone hurried past. Not sparing a glance at these junk items, sir, take a look at our family's ancestral jewelry jade pendants, all genuine, not expensive, just a few points, or you can give some food or drink. Mountain tried to muster a pleasing smile, repeatedly wiping his hands on his tattered clothes, appearing somewhat restrained. Seeing me squatting in front of the stall picking and choosing without saying a word, he miserably kept lowering the price. Finally, he said I could take everything if I just gave him 3 packs of instant noodles, a piece of white jade pendant, a jade ring, and a pill inside a box. He had gotten older and recently injured his leg, temporarily unable to take on missions. Facing the grim reality that his granddaughter might starve, he reluctantly decided to sell the family heirlooms he had taken when they fled. However, for 3 consecutive days, no one even showed interest. I listened attentively as Mountain shared his difficulties, and eventually, I asked him to gather everything on the red cloth. I'll take all of these, but the price for 3 packets of instant noodles isn't quite right. What about 2 packets then, boss? I really can't go any lower, he pleaded, seemingly thinking I was still haggling, and bowed deeply in a humble manner. I quickly reached out to support him and suggested we go to his home to discuss the deal properly. Mountain's home was a mere 4 square meters large basement. A worn bed was placed against the wall where a girl, even younger than Luna, sat quietly lost in her thoughts. The child looked only 2 or 3 years old, frail, and somewhat slow in her reactions, but her eyes were as bright and round as my sister's. This reminded me of Luna, and I wondered if she was eating well with the army. Seeing my genuine interest in trading made Mountain very happy. He patted the dust off the end of the bed to offer me a seat. I took the red cloth from his hands and then fetched 3 boxes of instant noodles from my storage. This was followed by 5 bags of rice, 2 bags of flour, 3 boxes of bottled water, 10 cans of nutritional milk powder, and 2 packs of sausages. Finally, I transferred the last 200 points from my card to his. Mountain was stunned. Having never seen so many supplies since the apocalypse began, 1 point could buy 3 coarse grain buns, so 200 points equaled 600 buns, plus rice, noodles, flour. These supplies, if used sparingly, were enough to feed him and his granddaughter for a whole year, sometimes even decently. His eyes widened, and his thin hands trembled slightly as he looked at me in disbelief. Sir, is all this really for me? Yes. Your items are worth this much. The jade pendant alone was a priceless treasure. But the saying that a man is not guilty but bears the guilt of possessing a jade remains unchanged through the ages, so I decided not to reveal the truth to him. Giving him too many supplies at once was not safe. A defenseless old man could easily become a target. I would find a way to continue supporting the grandfather and granddaughter later, otherwise, I wouldn't feel right about acquiring their family treasure at a low price. Mountain took several deep breaths, then suddenly knelt down with a thump. Thank you, benefactor, thank you. Seeing that he was about to bow his head in gratitude, I quickly knelt down to help him up. After comforting him and slipping some candy into his granddaughter's hand, I hurriedly left, fearing he might chase after me to express his thanks again. Unexpectedly, when I returned to the market, I ran into Snow. She was wearing a lab coat, rushing over with her soft hair dampened by a light sweat. sticking to her fair forehead. It was clear she was very anxious, frantically questioning nearby vendors. I hid behind an inconspicuous building, quietly observing her actions. "Hello, have you seen an old man named Mountain? He was selling a white jade pendant here. If you see him, please contact me. This is really important to me." After repeated inquiries with no success, Snow couldn't help but sniffle. Her eyelashes drooping, her aura diminished. She eventually just squatted at Mountain's former stall, waiting like a hunter. Seeing this, I frowned. In the past life, Snow had acquired the jade pendant casually while browsing. There was no way she could know this information in this life. I adjusted my hat to cover myself more and walked past her, hearing her mutter to herself. Could that dream have been false? I clearly dreamed I bought a space jade pendant here. How could it? Snow blinked, tilting her head, her expression slightly confused and puzzled. Hearing this, I felt relieved and quickly left the market to return to the basement. Thankfully, I almost thought she had been reborn too. I cradled the seemingly ordinary white jade pendant in my palm. The superpower settings in this book are rather unusual. After the apocalypse broke out, most people were infected by the virus and turned into mindless zombies. However, a fortunate few broke free from their shackles, unlocked their genetic potential, and evolved various superpowers. Superpowers are not ranked, they depend entirely on the individual's aptitude and application. My ability is spatial manipulation. It's a power without offensive capabilities, unappetizing to utilize yet too valuable to discard, a true chicken rib. In the early days of the apocalypse, I could still blend into various teams with my spatial ability to scavenge for supplies, which was quite in demand. But as the apocalypse progressed and the base developed heavy-duty vehicles, people like me with such abilities became undesirable and were treated like trash. Because I was considered trash, in my previous life, Snow and Rylan could trample over me without consequence. However, after being reborn, I recalled a rumor that circulated among the superpowered community in the later stages of the apocalypse, that superpowers could evolve by devouring others. What would they devour? How would the powers evolve? No one knew, and since no one had ever seen it happen, it was largely ignored. But I knew the rumor was true. I had seen an evolved superpower user and, coincidentally, died at his hands. Rylan originally possessed the power of lightning, but later he evolved to control both lightning and fire. No one knew exactly what had happened to him or what he had devoured, but once, while on a mission in City H with my team, I discovered a meteorite fireball radiating with lightning. We brought the meteorite back to base, and then it disappeared without a trace. As one of the few who knew about it, I speculated that Rylan had devoured it to evolve. Could I, too, evolve by devouring the spatial properties of this jade pendant? No, my worry was whether the spirit spring inside the pendant would disappear. I used the only bed in the basement to barricade the door and then curled up in the corner. The small room emitted a faint dampness, and a heavy scent of dust filled my nostrils. After hesitating for a while, I still gripped the jade pendant and slowly closed my eyes. Time trickled away, and the base's time broadcast was blocked from my senses. I didn't have many friends in the base, and no one but Luna would come looking for me, so when I opened my eyes again, I felt somewhat lost. Today is March 25th, year 1 of the new era. 5 a.m., announced the broadcast, just as it resumed. Surprisingly, 3 days and nights had passed unknowingly. A tremendous hunger pinched from my stomach. Not having eaten for days, my blood sugar was low, and I felt weak. Licking my dry, cracked lips, I took out a bottle of mineral water and a loaf of wheat bread from my space and devoured the meal. It wasn't tasty, but it was filling. Gradually, strength returned to my limbs, and my consciousness cleared. Pressing against my slightly numb and sore feet, I sensed a change in my spatial ability. The space and spirit spring inside the white jade pendant had disappeared, replaced by a small pool of spring water in the corner of my space. The exact effects of the spirit water were unknown. In my previous life, it had only been held by Snow, and no one else had touched it. She had claimed it could greatly dilute the zombie virus. Thinking this, I took about 500 test tubes from the corner of my space and filled each with the spirit water. I needed to find a way to deliver the water to the research institute without exposing myself, as it might be useful for developing an antidote for the zombie virus. The base area of my original space was still 10,000 square meters, about the size of a school playground. In the apocalypse, no one easily reveals their true capabilities, but I had a feeling my space was still much larger than most. Even in the later stages, I still had a role to play in large missions at the base, but this was still not enough. With only this level of ability, Rylan could kill me as easily as killing an ant. To survive and seek revenge in the apocalypse, I needed offensive capabilities. I closed my eyes and felt carefully for a long time but still could not determine the direction in which my spatial ability might evolve. If that was the case, I would have to figure it out slowly through real combat. Sighing with some regret, I staggered up from the corner, intending to move the bed blocking the door, but one leg of the bed was tightly wedged in the door gap, and no matter how I tried, I couldn't move it. After shaking it for a long time to no avail, just as I was about to fetch tools to break the bed leg, the whole bed suddenly loosened with a snap, crack, 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 as I stared in stunned silence. The solid bed suddenly collapsed into a chaotic heap on the floor, the foot of the bed. As if forcibly yanked off, left the frame's wooden boards twisted and broken irregularly. Holding my breath, I crouched down to closely examine the sharp wooden splinters where it had snapped. This bed had been torn apart. To confirm the suspicion nagging at me, I casually picked up a metal bucket filled with water nearby and gradually activated my special ability. With a loud clang, the sturdy metal bucket split into two halves, forcefully torn apart. After a brief investigation, I found traces of spatial abilities still lingering on it. Clutching my fists tightly, I suddenly found my breathing growing rapid. Fearing that my guess might be wrong, I spared no effort in tampering with every object in the basement. Only when the room was in complete disarray and no more objects left to destroy, did I dare to confirm the evolution of my ability, Rend, creating spatial rifts to tear apart entities within the same space. The extent of its destructive power depended on the user's skill and aptitude. It was a formidable offensive ability. Ever since my rebirth, the anxiety that had been hanging over me slowly subsided, and I took a deep breath of relief. Today is March 25th, year 1 of the new era, 8 a.m. The mechanical voice of the bass echoed around me as people began to stir outside the basement. Recalling an event from my past life that was about to happen, I quickly washed up and hurried out. After delivering the spirit water to the research institute using a black plate truck found in the trading market, I rushed to the mission hall. Today, the hall was bustling, even more crowded than usual due to the base issuing a high-level S-class mission to hunt a mutated willow tree in H City, the very place struck by a meteorite with thunderous and fiery properties. This time, I planned to reach the site first and get my hands on the meteorite before anyone else. Even if I didn't need it myself, I couldn't let Rylan have it. With Rylan's already powerful electrokinetic abilities, any gain for him meant a disadvantage for me, making it harder to take him and Snow down later. After receiving and carefully filling out the mission card, I passed the interview with the supervisor and successfully joined the team. However, it was only after boarding the military truck that I realized several researchers in white lab coats were seated in the front row. Among them Snow, curiously looking around with her cheeks slightly puffed. Indeed, this was the butterfly effect from my rebirth. In my previous life, Snow, having risen to a senior researcher after saving lives, wouldn't need to participate in such missions, yet here she was. I hesitated, contemplating switching vehicles, but the doors were promptly shut by the guard team. Helplessly, I found a seat far from her. The next second, Snow caught sight of me with her beautiful, glistening eyes. Nervously fidgeting with her dainty, pale pink fingertips, her unusual demeanor unexpectedly drew everyone's attention. "What's wrong, Snow?" "It's nothing, just that I ran into the sister who took the medicine I wanted to use to save someone last time," Snow stuttered, her long eyelashes trembling, her fair little face filled with sadness. "What did you say? Was it that selfish person who reported you to the dean and got you scolded?" The man sitting next to Snow, Simon, a fellow mid-level researcher, adjusted his glasses and looked at me indignantly. Hearing this, the other researchers and ability users in the vehicle instantly showed contempt. The chatty girl next to me also fell silent and subtly moved a few centimeters away from me. In just a few words, I had become a pariah, shunned by all. I shifted my legs and settled into a more comfortable position to rest with my eyes closed. "Oh no, I didn't mean that. Sister Ella probably didn't do it on purpose." Snow, seemingly embarrassed about getting me scolded, nervously tried to defend me. As expected, this only increased everyone's disdain for me. "Snow, you're too kind, and that's why you're bullied by such shameless people." "Yeah, the medicine was developed by our institute. Why shouldn't she give it to you?" "Poor Snow, just trying to save someone and yet she gets reported. How can such trash even pass the interview to join the mission?" The people from the institute were united in their hostility, each person protecting Snow without lowering their voices, clearly intending for me to hear. I raised an eyebrow without opening my eyes, appearing calm on the surface, but my fingertips hidden in my sleeves twitched slightly. In a post-apocalyptic world, researchers are a rare breed, and they represent humanity's only hope for defeating the zombie virus. They are also the primary individuals to be safeguarded during the S-level mission in H City. Technically, I shouldn't interfere with them, but a little mischief is still permissible. How come my research suit is torn? Mine too. It was fine when I left the house. My hair. The military truck took nearly half a month to arrive, and everyone was cautious as we entered H City. Before the apocalypse, H City was a provincial capital with a transient population of nearly 20 million, making it extremely dangerous. According to the base's detection instruments, a 10-meter-tall mutated willow tree appeared in the city center 2 weeks ago. The researchers believe that this anomaly is a crucial signal, prompting the mission. Participants were divided into 5 squads, each approaching from different areas. I huddled in a corner with others, examining the map of H City and trying to recall the safe routes from my past life. I realized that the safe route wasn't in this district at all. At that moment, the truck stopped at a fork in the road, apparently facing a dilemma. The head of the escort team came back to explain the situation, indicating that there were 2 possible paths ahead. Route A was the shortest, taking about 3 days to the city center but had a high concentration of zombies. Route B was longer, taking around 5 days but avoided dense zombie areas and was safer. After much discussion, the researchers decided to take the safer Route B. We can't take Route B. Seeing no opposition, I reluctantly stood up. The captain of the guard was surprised but paused and looked at me quizzically. What's up? The population density marked on the map is based on pre-apocalyptic models, but it's been a year since then. Taking Route B, we'll have to stay in Shuanglin district, where there are no suitable buildings for shelter, and it's fraught with danger. Although I had never been to this region, I had heard about the situation in H City several times in my past life. Known danger zones included Shuanglin District, where a minor zombie outbreak had occurred. I spread out the map to analyze the pros and cons of the areas and looked up only to find that no one was paying attention to my opinion. Everyone was busy with their things, occasionally laughing and creating a harmonious atmosphere. Simon, a researcher who had previously defended Snow, scoffed and said disdainfully, "When it's time for a mission, the researchers have the deciding power, not you. We've discussed both routes, and Route B is much safer. Can you take responsibility if something goes wrong on Route A? Oh, then let's do as you say." I sat back down without changing my expression, started marking the map, and didn't argue further. It's hard to persuade a doomed soul, and mercy won't help those who refuse to help themselves. The location where the meteor fell was not far from the mutated willow tree in the city center. The military truck was efficient, but if I got off now, I would be too late to reach the meteor site. However, I needed to find an escape route in advance, just in case I couldn't get wiped out along with them. Could I? Seeing me thwarted, everyone secretly laughed, unaware that death was stealthily approaching. Indeed, 2 days later, the military truck reached Shuanglin District. After a search, the escort team found no safe shelters nearby, so we stationed ourselves in a large shopping mall. The observant captain of the guard gave me a solemn look. The mall's doors and windows were shattered, shelves that once held goods had collapsed, and trash was strewn everywhere, creating a mess. After the blood-red sunset sank, the darkness flickered with a sinister, bloodthirsty glow. After discussing, the squad decided to rest in the food section. Everyone sat on the floor and ate compressed biscuits simply. As long as one participated in the mission, the base would provide basic meals daily. I found a corner with a broad view and easy escape routes and absent-mindedly sipped mineral water. Something was off. It was too quiet here. Beep 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 beep. In the silence, a sudden piercing car alarm sounded from outside the building. Everyone eating quietly froze, anxiously staring in the direction of the battered door. But after a long wait with no further disturbances, everyone slowly relaxed their guard. Maybe it's just the wind. The researchers said there are no zombies here. Scared of what? I muttered to myself. After my spatial abilities evolved, my perception had slightly improved as well. When the alarm ceased, the terrifying figures lurking in the dark finally began to emerge in countless numbers. The zombies are coming. I pulled a long sword from the space, stepped out from the corner, and issued a cold warning. This sword, with a 1-meter hilt and a 1.5-meter double-edged blade, was the cold weapon that suited me best after 10 years of apocalypse. The previously relaxed atmosphere in the hall instantly froze. Most people frowned, looking at me, puzzled. Simon sneered, unconvinced. "You say there are zombies and then there..." His words were cut off as the mall doors suddenly crashed to the ground. In the creepy twilight, a group of zombies with rotting, pus-oozing faces and tattered bodies staggered closer. The howling grew louder, and from the unseen darkness, countless zombies surged toward us like a flood. The zombie tide had erupted. The guards reacted the quickest, grabbing weapons to shield the researchers and ordering a retreat, according to the rules. Aside from the guards, every person with abilities was responsible for protecting a researcher. As I swung my longsword, slicing down the approaching zombies, I also used my spatial abilities to tear off the heads of nearby zombies. 1, 2, 3. Initially, I could only tear off one zombie's neck at a time, but as the tide grew denser and the zombies, driven mad by the scent of flesh, lunged in a frenzy, more and more people fell. I was forced to overuse my spatial abilities, tearing 2, 3, 4 at a time. Eventually, I began to numbly kill. The power of my abilities far surpassed that of any cold weapon. Headless zombies fell in droves around me, creating a rather spectacular scene. Fortunately, the mall's doors were not very large, limiting the number of zombies that could pour in at once. With several ability users focusing their attacks, we managed to catch our breath. Just as I was about to retreat through the back door, a figure in a white lab coat was pushed into my arms. This delicate and boneless person clutched nervously at my clothes. Unsurprisingly, it was Snow. Without a word, the captain of the guard entrusted her to me and then went back into the mall to rescue others. His bravery left me no choice but to agree. After all, if the female lead died now, the world would collapse, and fate would restart. A real hassle. However, I had a nagging feeling that ever since absorbing the jade pendant, the force compelling me to protect her seemed somewhat diminished. It seemed my earlier guess was right. If I could destroy all of Snow's chances, her protagonist's halo would completely disappear. Clutching my sword, I let Snow follow behind as I searched for a temporary shelter. Fortunately, before my abilities were completely drained, I spotted a bank at a street corner. The bank had multiple security doors, which should hold off the zombies. Yet, just as I was about to completely shake off the zombie horde, the person behind suddenly grabbed my arm. "Ella, please don't go, save them," Snow pleaded, looking up at me with tearful eyes and biting her lip pitifully. Her sudden tut almost made me stumble into an oncoming zombie. Despite her confusion, she persistently blocked my way. "They spoke out of turn earlier and offended you. I apologize on their behalf. With great power comes great responsibility. If you don't save them, they will really die." She peeked towards the mall direction, tears streaming down her face. Delayed by this, the massive horde of zombies surged closer again. The howling intensified, yet I stopped, standing still. A rotting hand, barely more than a palm, reached out and fiercely grabbed Snow's long, dark hair. She shuddered with fear and, momentarily forgetting to cry, screamed desperately, clinging to my waist. "Sister, do something quickly. Are you still spouting nonsense?" What? Her voice trembled, too shaken to speak clearly. As she was about to be dragged away, I swiftly raised my blade, now coated with a sticky fluid, and cut off her hair. The next second, the zombie's head was brutally torn apart, black blood splattered, instantly smearing her face. Some even splashed into her incessantly chattering mouth. "Either turn back and save them yourself or shut your mouth." Seeing Snow's face turn pale as she bent over to vomit continuously, I grabbed her by the collar and dragged her back to the entrance of the bank. I threw a small bomb from my space, instantly clearing a small area around us. I took the opportunity to squeeze through the gate and calmly searched for the hidden switch of the second security door in a corner 3 meters away. The zombies, blocked outside the gate, growled, their mouths oozing dark, foul-smelling pus. After being dragged in, Snow collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, still in shock. Just as the security door was slowly descending, she looked up towards the street corner, her eyes suddenly lighting up astonishingly. "Simon, we're here," she shouted excitedly, attracting more and more zombies. I also saw a group of people frantically running towards us, including some researchers and individuals with special abilities. But with 20 seconds until the security door fully closed, and the group still 80 meters away from the bank and having to pass through a horde of zombies, they had no chance of making it. "No, we can't close the door, they're not inside yet." Snow threw herself forward, desperately guarding the switch. Already extremely drained from using my abilities, I blacked out from her forceful pushing and fell to the ground. My forearm scraped against an exposed steel bar, spreading the smell of blood. The zombies lingering outside the bank door grew even more excited, twisting their bodies, trying to squeeze through the gate. Shivering, I picked up a broadsword and slowly pushed back a few stragglers. Damn it, if it weren't for the heroine's halo, I'd have to literally tear Snow apart limb from limb. I really am starting to have the makings of a villain. Why can't it stop? How could this happen? Seeing the security door continuously descending, Snow stomped her feet in urgency. "It's a one-way device. Once activated, it can't be stopped," I explained coolly while bandaging my wound. "No, I can't leave them behind." With 10 seconds left, less than a meter gap remained in the security door. Snow lay on the ground, waving her small hands trying to lift the heavy door. Finding it ineffective, she helplessly hugged her knees and sobbed, tears making her small face even more delicate and lovely. I squinted my eyes, staring at her with a malicious smile. "Then go out and die with them. Go on, you can distract the zombies and buy them some time, right? Go out. Why aren't you speaking? Aren't you supposed to be great and kind? Why hesitate to sacrifice yourself?" Snow, not good at arguing, just quietly held her knees and sobbed. The tears that fell cleaned the blood from her face, revealing her delicate and pretty features. Just then, a low male voice came from the second-floor corridor of the bank. "Enough, let it be." Familiar words. A familiar condescending tone. Sure enough, The next second Rylan appeared from the darkness, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his eyelids drooped lazily, his expression indifferent, surrounded by flickering purple lightning. Kill him, turn him into a human pig, throw him to the zombies. I clenched my teeth hard, desperately suppressing the surge of murderous intent inside me. Clearly, he had been standing there for a long time, and I had not sensed him at all. Although my powers were currently depleted, I knew that Rylan was still stronger than me. After all, I had only recently evolved my tearing ability, while he had been mastering lightning for a year. The objective gap caused by these factors was hard to close in the short term, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. Want to play the game of a strong woman and a stronger man? Get lost. Are you bullying a kid? Rylan squatted in front of me, blowing smoke in my face. His expression willful and his eyes barely visible. He had just witnessed me using my spatial ability to strangle zombies, and it seemed he found such a woman interesting. As we locked eyes closely, neither of us showed weakness, and a raw fierceness and murderous intent burst forth silently between us. It's too similar. Humans don't like others who resemble themselves too much. Before I could push him away, Rylan straightened up on his own, reverting to his unapproachable demeanor. Yet he didn't leave. Instead, he seemed to casually kick the girl next to him who was crying her eyes out. Snow looked up as if sensing something, her large, dewy eyes wide open, with her pale and flushed little face tilted upward. She innocently gazed at the tall, indifferent man before her. I knew Rylan was a sucker for this sort of thing. He was naturally cold-blooded and lacked empathy, which made him find the kindness and purity that this girl maintained in a post-apocalyptic world incredible. At first, it piqued his interest, then his protective instincts kicked in, and eventually, he fell for her. Come on, I'll take care of your meal, Rylan said as he pulled her up from the ground, then let out a small tisk upon noticing she was choked by smoke and extinguished his cigarette. But, let go of me, I won't go with you. Snow had never been embraced by a man before. Her face turned bright red as she struggled weakly. She looked at him warily yet timidly, like a little kitten whose fur had been ruffled, her eyes glistening and moist. Watching the scene, I stood up, leaning on my saber, and silently ridiculed them in my mind. What a pair of fools. The second floor of the bank was an intermediate level. Not only Rylan but also his elite squad, Hunt Winter, occupied this space. He was affiliated with the senior forces of the base, and each member of his team possessed formidable abilities. It seemed that Hunt Winter was the secret trump card sent by the base for this S-class mission. Currently, my drained abilities had not yet recovered, my forearm was injured, my physical strength was waning, and I was clearly at a disadvantage. Pressed by the situation, I had no choice but to cease hostilities and quietly move to a corner to rest. I took out a medical kit from my space, carefully cleaned my wound, and applied medicine. Then, I grabbed a box of self-heating braised beef rice and a piece of ready-to-eat chicken steak, simple yet nutritious. After eating and drinking my fill, I leaned against the corner, held my breath, and slowly recovered my abilities. Hunt Winter's team quietly sat in another corner, watching my actions strangely. Snow sat demurely among them, holding a matcha-flavored compressed biscuit, with a 250 milliliters bottle of juice at her feet, perhaps because the food was delicious. She blissfully squinted her eyes, and a shallow dimple appeared on her lips. It seemed she had completely forgotten about the friends outside for whom she had cried her heart out. I noticed that the wound on my arm was slightly painful and showing signs of inflammation, and my head also throbbed painfully. Continuing this way was not an option. Looking at Snow, I suddenly remembered that in a previous life, both she and Rylan had incredibly fast healing speeds when injured. Rylan's strong physique was understandable, but Snow's exceptional performance without any abilities was clearly illogical. Perhaps this had something to do with her golden finger. The spiritual spring in my space, which had been ignored all this time, suddenly came back into my view. At the time, Snow herself had announced that the spring water could dilute the zombie virus, but who knew if what she said was true? With this thought, my nerves suddenly became excited. I slightly closed my eyes as if dozing, keeping part of my senses alert to the outside world. Meanwhile, in my conscious space, I controlled an empty mineral water bottle, filled it with spring water, screwed the cap tightly, and took it out as if nothing had happened. I swallowed a few mouthfuls, as if just drinking ordinary water. The taste was nothing special, just like that of mineral water, but after drinking it, I felt the piercing pain in my arm slowly fading, and my abilities recovered at an extremely fast rate. I had bet correctly. This spring water was like a cheating artifact. No wonder Snow's protagonist aura weakened without it. Despite the inner excitement, I kept my composure on the surface and pretended to fall into a deep sleep due to lack of energy. The night was quiet and peaceful, but who knew how many could actually sleep? The next morning, Hunt Winter's team was ready to set off. The trouble was, They seemed to have set their sights on me. More precisely, Rylan was inexplicably focused on me, requesting that I join his team temporarily for the mission. Seeing that I had not agreed for a while, Rylan narrowed his eyes dangerously, observing my expressions like a hunter. Since we're all on the same mission, why not join my team? Or do you have other places in mind? He had to admit, his instincts were sharp. If I keep refusing, it wouldn't be surprising if he, that venomous snake, becomes thoroughly suspicious and entangles me in his schemes, such an annoyance that you just can't shake off. The meteorite is about to hit H City soon, and I must make sure to get there alone, ahead of time. I need to think of a way to find a legitimate excuse to break away from them. I'll join, but on one condition. During our conversation, I and the members of the Winter Hunt Squad stood by the second-floor window, using our special abilities to clear the zombies wandering at the door. This group's abilities varied widely, including fire, wood, manipulation, strength, and psychic, each member highly talented. Even though they were among the chosen few geniuses of the base, they couldn't help but be stunned by my ability to take down several zombies at once. It was clear I had spatial abilities, yet I could also attack, which was illogical. But then, there are many illogical things in this world, and they couldn't figure out the specifics from me. They simply thought I was particularly strong. Now, in the early days of the apocalypse, no one would think of something like devouring evolution. Let's hear it. Lightning twirled around Rylan's fingertips, casting a slight glow on his handsome features. He seemed interested in what I had to say. I won't be your free labor or your storage vehicle, so my condition is that anything I collect during the mission is mine alone, not to be shared with the team. As I used about a fifth of my ability, I pretended that my powers were drained and slowly wiped my katana while leaning casually against the windowsill. Perhaps due to the bloodstains, the blade seemed even colder and more menacing. Actually, not sharing collected items was against the base's regulations. According to the mission hall rules, everything collected by a squad on a mission was supposed to belong to the base, and there were even inspectors responsible for inventory. Violators would be expelled from the base. I dared to make such a condition knowing that Rylan was a core member of the base's upper echelons. In special circumstances like temporary teams or missions independent of the main tasks, he had the authority to amend the rules. It's necessary to reveal some weaknesses to the enemy so they lower their guard. My greed and selfishness, for instance, would make Rylan believe he had seen the real me. As I expected, he agreed without much enthusiasm. It's a deal. Because of a surge in zombies, the journey to the city center became exceptionally difficult. We fought our way there in a military truck, taking 3 days and nights. No one knew that I was overextending my abilities every day, just to gain quicker control over my powers. With a wealth of combat experience, my destructive power and spatial awareness increased significantly. Just 1,000 meters away from a mutated willow tree in the center of H City, Winter Hunt began to conserve energy. The team chose an old pawn shop as our resting place. After the apocalypse, no one was interested in the items pawned there, which made this shop unusually clean and tidy. There was a reason for this choice, of course. With a plan in mind, I quietly took an old jade pendant from my space and tucked it into my pocket. The once smooth jade now felt cool and dull to the touch. H City was soon to face the meteorite landing, and I had finally devised a way to rid myself of them without suspicion. As night fell, everyone, exhausted from the day's fighting, rested closely together. Rylan, seated nearest to me, had his black hair messily falling over his forehead, his expression serene. In the quiet corner, I leaned against the wall, pretending to be asleep. In the middle of the night, a staggering zombie entered the pawn shop, lunging ferociously at Rylan. I silently got up and walked away. Suddenly awakened, Snow gasped softly and without hesitation threw herself in front of him to block the zombie. Amid the zombie's ghastly howls, she closed her eyes in despair, her face deathly pale. But a second later, a flash of lightning filled the room, and the attacking zombie was flung several meters away, completely motionless. "Who asked you to save me?" In the dim light of a small lamp inside the pawn shop, Rylan, with his arms around the person he saved, had a dark expression on his face. Hearing his slightly reproachful tone, Snow turned her head slightly, looking aggrieved. Her cheeks were tinged with a blush. When she retorted, her tone was a mix of anger and haughty defiance. "Who do you think you are? Who says I'm saving you? I would have saved anyone in that situation." "Okay." After her sharp response, Rylan arched an eyebrow and gripped her waist, his gaze becoming deeper and more dangerous. "Really? You'd risk your life for anyone?" "Yes, and what does it have to do with you?" Snow, annoyed and playful, pushed against his chest and stuck out her tongue teasingly, the soft, rosy tip making his breath hitch. This striking scene unfolded before me, and I silently retched a few times without expression. Damn, they better not be starting anything here. I finally believe that this world is thoroughly a post-apocalyptic romance novel. I guess I'm just meant to be the antagonist. When can I take my revenge on them? If I take that meteorite and steal the male lead's opportunity, their protagonistic aura should weaken, right? In the midst of their sweet bickering that was really just flirtation in disguise, I walked into the pawn shop, pretending to browse, casually. I picked up a pill of Wuji Baifeng Wan, a jade ring, and mixed in a white jade pendant, my jade pendant. Even in the dim light, Snow recognized the pendant hanging on a red cord around my neck at a glance. It was the pendant lingering in her mind, her intuition telling her it was crucial to her life. She had to get it back. Ella, this pendant looks similar to the keepsake my mother left me. Snow nervously curled her fingertips, her beautiful, delicate face almost completely flushed as she lied, though she didn't spell it out. Everyone in the squad instinctively focused on the pendant around my neck. In this post-apocalyptic world, a jade pendant wasn't a rare item, and everyone guessed I'd take it off and give it to her as a favor. Unfortunately, they were wrong. I'm not the type to pity or spare anyone. Slowly twirling the red cord around my fingers, I played with the pendant, smiling and locking eyes with Snow. You're lying. I'm not. Easily seen through, Snow's gaze became warm, helpless, and a bit misty. Her innocence and allure apparent, everyone could see she was lying, but somehow found her clumsiness endearing. After all, what harm could a girl who couldn't even lie properly do? Certainly less threatening than someone assertive and aggressive like me. Soon, several men in the squad spoke up for Snow. Ella, just give it to her. It's not like the pendant is a treasure. Yeah, Snow is about to cry. Why bully her? You keeping the pendant is useless anyway. Just leave it as a keepsake for Snow. They weren't wrong in thinking the pendant was currently useless, but I had gone through a lot of trouble to set up this conflict. How could I easily relent? Under everyone's watchful eyes, I yanked off the pendant and stored it back in my space, spreading my empty hands openly. Sorry, I found the pendant, and I don't want to give it to anyone. That's the reliance of a space manipulator, even in death. Only they can retrieve what's in their space. As everyone was on the same team fighting side by side, they found it hard to press further and simply bowed their heads to continue resting. Only Snow became more anxious as the pendant disappeared, stomping her feet with tears brimming in her eyes. In the dim light, she lifted her delicate white fingertips and gently tugged at Rylan's clothes, silently pleading. Rylan, intent on teasing her, chuckled deeply, asked nicely, and I'll help you. With no other option, Snow buried her head low, softly and obediently calling out, Brother, please, say it again. You, Snow, provoked, looked up with tears brimming at the corners of her eyes, her lips soft and full, dipped in enticing crimson. Seeing this, Rylan was satisfied and tousled her hair, commanding from above, Give it to her. Why should I? Because I'm the team leader. Captain, have you forgotten the agreement we made when you joined the team? I tilted my head, displaying an innocently bureaucratic smile. The stuff collected wasn't handed over. Reminded by me, Rylan finally remembered his promise. He frowned impatiently and clicked his tongue, pulling a cigarette from the pack and placing it between his lips. Just a little thing like this. Can't you hand it over? No. I moved my fingertips, tearing the lit cigarette at his mouth in half. I disliked the smell of cigarettes. It was the first time someone dared to use supernatural abilities in front of him. Rylan's expression turned cold, his eyes sharp. Refusals are only because the stakes aren't high enough. Name your price. What do you want? I leaned against the wall, pulling out a saber from thin air and began to wipe it, remaining silent. Supplies. I don't lack them. Points. Don't need them. A place at the base. I have one. After several questions blocked nonchalantly by me, Rylan's temper flared. Do you believe I can make it impossible for you to stay at the northern base? I can always switch bases. The saber grew shinier as I wiped, a cold light emanating from it. Snow was somewhat scared, but seeing my tenacity, she became even more convinced of the extreme importance of the jade pendant in my possession. Thus, she nervously twisted the hem of her clothes, mustering the courage to speak timidly. Ella, I'm a researcher at the base. Last time I was at your place, I saw your sister seemed ill. I assure you, if you are willing to hand over the jade pendant, you or your sister can come to me anytime you need potions in the future. Hearing this, the pretending to be indifferent hunters also turned their heads in surprise. In these apocalyptic times, potions are extremely precious, often hard to come by. A single antidote potion usually requires a year's worth of task points to redeem, and there's a quota. Getting a promise from a researcher was truly tempting, but I just smiled, shaking my head gently and pressed the saber against Snow's neck. The sharp blade instantly cut through her delicate skin, and drops of blood began to flow. Snow froze in place, not daring to move, her face turning ghostly pale. Who allowed you to mention my sister? Oh Snow, you who stole the potion and caused my sister's death. How could you shamelessly say you'd help with potions in the future? In the basement back then, I should have killed you without a second thought. The space ability in my palm slowly converged, a tremendous murderous intent ready to erupt, but then a pair of slender, pale hands wrapped in lightning moved the saber away from Snow's neck. A streak of lightning followed the blade, leaving a scorched mark in my palm at lightning speed. It was followed by a familiar paralysis. The sensation of electricity coursing through my body like in my past life, but this time, I wouldn't let myself be slaughtered again. At the same moment, a bloody wound appeared on Ryland's shoulder, 20 centimeters long, deep enough to see the bone. A thick purple lightning dragon erupted around him, making his stern face appear even more terrifying. Ella, you dared to touch my people. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? You can try. The arm hit by the lightning was still a bit numb, movements slightly awkward, but I was fearless. The smile still lingering on my lips despite the scar in my palm. Then you aren't afraid I'll kill your sister? Sorry, my sister is now the precious daughter of the deputy commander of the Western Base. I doubt Captain Ryland has the ability to kill her. Ryland's chilling aura faltered, clearly not expecting this twist. Enough, I don't want the jade pendant anymore. Stop fighting. Seeing Ryland injured by my hand, Snow, with tears in her eyes, rushed forward to shield him. She remained as naive and gentle as ever. If this level of confrontation was truly just over a jade pendant, it would not be worth it. From the moment we first met, Ryland didn't trust me. We both knew that Snow was just an excuse for us to test each other's strength. Protagonists and antagonists are natural archenemies by design. Now, with my honed evolutionary powers and his innate abilities, we were evenly matched. As we faced off in a deadlock, I sheathed my saber, dispersed my powers, and let out a laugh. Just kidding, Captain, you can have the jade pendant, but the military vehicle outside is mine. Casually, I tossed the small jade pendant into Snow's arms, who was sobbing as he tended to Ryland's wounds. The tense atmosphere instantly dissolved. Ryland and I weren't really going to fight to the death today. He needed to deal with the mutated Willow in the city center. I had to intercept a meteorite that was about to crash. We were both busy. What do you need the military vehicle for? Ryland didn't refuse and let Snow bandage his wounds while crying. We're parting ways. You broke the agreement first. We're not compatible. The members of the winter hunting squad felt awkward hearing this, not realizing that I intended to provoke a confrontation. These past few days had been too suffocating, and I couldn't bear to leave without seeing the main characters thwarted. Finally, amid Ryland's inscrutable expression, one of the team members handed me the ignition for one of the military vehicles. Till we meet again, I waved cheerfully and drove away, the burning sensation in my palm barely noticeable as I gripped the steering wheel. I looked forward to the day I could finally take them down. The military vehicle developed by the base had state-of-the-art anti-tracking features, sensing no one following. I floored the accelerator and headed straight for the remembered location of the meteorite's impact. At 2 a.m. in H City, all was silent. A purple-red fireball streaked across the night sky, lighting up half the heavens before it slowly extinguished and fell. When the meteorite landed, I rushed from the rubble to the site. A 3-meter-deep crater had formed on the previously flat ground, surrounded by scorched earth. At the center of the crater lay a fist-sized irregular rock, with purple lightning occasionally flickering on its surface, wrapping around an inner glow of red fire. This was the meteorite my squad had collected and turned in my previous life. Containing my excitement, I took out a prepared protective vacuum box from my space to secure the meteorite. The box could isolate viruses and radiation and had a signal-blocking feature. Once in my space, no one else would know the whereabouts of this meteorite. I was about to climb out of the crater, satisfied, when I felt a very faint spatial fluctuation from the soil under my feet. It was so subtle that I wouldn't have noticed it without my enhanced spatial perception. Following my instinct, I continued to dig deeper. Eventually, 2 meters beneath the crater's base, another palm-sized meteorite appeared, emitting a soft silvery glow surrounded by rich spatial energy. I suddenly recalled that in the 9th year of the apocalypse, H City had been declared a restricted area by all major bases because it had become the Lost City, where explorers who entered never returned. I had a suspicion then that this phenomenon was related to space. Could the Lost City and this overlooked meteorite be connected? If Ryland could absorb the Thunderfire meteorite to evolve his abilities, could I also undergo a secondary evolution by absorbing this spatial meteorite? This bold speculation sent my heart racing. The evening wind on the plain was bleak and biting, constantly calling me back to reason. After securing the silvery meteorite into my space, I intended to explore the area, but disturbances started appearing from all directions within 200 meters. Someone was coming. I tightened my hood and hid in a nearby abandoned shopping mall, an ideal spot with underground passages that led discreetly to a street block 500 meters away, perfect for a quick getaway. The military vehicle was stored in my space, ready to be driven at full speed in the opposite direction of the city center once I reached the main road, returning to the base. There's no telling what unexpected events might occur. If the large detection device at the entrance can detect the meteorite through space, the loss would be significant. The difference between the basements built by the rich and those at the base is like night and day. They're clean, spacious, and even furnished with beds and bedding. I still carefully locked up, using a military card directly from my space to block the entrance door. Once I confirmed it was safe and wouldn't be disturbed, I sat down cross-legged in a corner, flipping my palm. The slightly glowing meteorite reappeared. The last time I absorbed energy from the jade space, I didn't feel much, but the energy attached to this meteorite was clearly much more substantial. Just to be cautious, I had already fortified myself with several bottles of spiritual spring water. As soon as I closed my eyes and connected my special abilities to the meteorite, a sharp pain struck my heart. The intense pain grew worse, spreading from my chest to my limbs and bones. I clenched my teeth to keep from crying out in pain, struggling to stay conscious. The basement lights burst one by one due to the energy effect. In the darkness, I felt as if my skin and organs were continuously being torn apart. But then, a gentle energy from the spiritual spring slowly flowed and nourished my body. Time slowly passed as I was torn apart, reshaped, and torn apart again. When I opened my eyes again, it was about 2 days later. I carefully sensed the direction of my ability's second evolution, my thoughts gradually clearing, folding space to achieve transportation and transition of physical entities. The extent of the fold depends on the user's skill level and talent. Although it's just a supportive ability, it's very useful. However, the enhancement from the second evolution didn't stop there. I suddenly realized that the space, which hadn't changed for a long time, had now expanded tenfold, and my tearing ability seemed to have significantly increased as well. This unexpected change left me deep in thought. If there can be a second evolution, could there be a third? What is the limit of ability evolution, if it could evolve continuously? Could humanity ultimately survive? I sat in the dim basement for a long time, eventually deciding to share the secret of ability devouring and evolution with the public. The real apocalypse is not some heroic narrative. The more powerful individuals with abilities, the greater the chances of humanity's survival. 13 years after the apocalypse, the sight of human life ceasing on the ruins was still vivid in my mind. What if we could win, in the basement of the villa area? There's a radio that covers all channels. I disguised my voice and encrypted the signal several times before broadcasting. The moment after I revealed the secret of ability evolution, requests to connect to the channel flooded in like a tide. I promptly cut off the communication and switched to the base's public channel. After learning that everyone had dealt with the mutated Willow in the city center and was preparing to return, I planned my next steps. After cleaning up the traces left in the basement, I completely destroyed the radio and left. Every major base has its secret talents, and it's possible someone had already pinpointed my location, so I had to evacuate. Moreover, I needed to blend into the team to eliminate any suspicion. Historically, those who know too many secrets tend not to live long. 5 teams agreed to meet in the southern part of H City, with the gathering scheduled in 5 days. Currently, I'm in the far north, and the 2 locations are very far apart. It would take 6 days to travel between them at full speed, but fortunately, my spatial ability has evolved a second time, and by utilizing folding, I managed to teleport to the meeting point after stopping 4 or 5 times along the way. Within a day, I achieved a 1,000-mile rush, showcasing the power of evolved abilities. On the first evening, I arrived on a street 2 kilometers from the meeting point and retrieved the military card from my space. As I drove leisurely towards the main troop, only 2 unfamiliar teams were stationed at the campsite. I parked the military card on the outskirts and casually set up a tent in a corner to rest. The ability users from the 2 teams gathered around the central bonfire, their expressions solemn. It was then I realized they were discussing the news of ability devouring and evolution that I had recently announced. Do you think what that person said on the radio is true? It must be a made-up story. This isn't some apocalyptic thriller. How could abilities possibly evolve, even if they can evolve? He mentioned items with the same attributes, but I've never heard of such things. The crowd murmured among themselves, skeptical yet visibly excited. Who doesn't want to become stronger? In a post-apocalyptic world, strength is the ultimate rule. I sat down cross-legged in silence, quietly eating bread and milk while listening, without participating in the conversation. The next evening, 2 military trucks from the Winter Hunt Squad arrived at the rendezvous point. Rylan got out of one of the trucks, carrying Snow in his arms. Snow was wrapped in a large men's overcoat, her small face buried in his chest, blushing, with her delicate lips slightly swollen. She clung to his neck softly, her almond eyes moist and incredibly dewy. When Rylan set her down, he playfully nipped at her delicate earlobe, causing her legs to go weak and nearly unable to stand. In broad daylight, the divine scene was set to unfold right there. As soon as I opened the tent, I was greeted by this unsightly scene and emotionlessly retreated back. Everything was calm until the third night when the fourth squad approached from the direction of the city center. While everyone was still deep in sleep, a faint zombie howl shattered the night's calm. I abruptly opened my eyes, sensing something extraordinary. I followed the crowd to the center of the camp, where the captain of the guard, dressed in combat gear, looked unusually stern. Nearly all the researchers and guards had been summoned. The Winter Hunt Squad, acting as a special forces unit, was at the forefront. They unloaded a metal cage from one of the military trucks. The cage, shimmering faintly with a silver light, imprisoned a zombie. Upon seeing the dense crowd, it growled lowly as a threat. When it realized it couldn't escape the cage, the zombie eerily quieted down and stiffly observed its surroundings. This was the biggest problem. It was conscious. "Captain, we captured this zombie 200 meters east of the mutated willow. It's exhibiting abnormal behaviors. Should we execute it immediately?" The squad leader reported the situation in detail, his expression equally grim. A zombie exhibiting abnormalities was not a good sign. If they could become stronger, humanity would be in danger. It was clear Rylan had thought of this too. His palms burst forth with majestic purple lightning in the cold, dark night, the intent to kill spreading. However, just then, the zombie suddenly stopped moving and stared intently in Snow's direction. It made a ha-ha sound, seemingly anxious. Snow, initially turning her head away in pity, inadvertently met its gaze and shuddered violently. She incredulously stepped back, her eyes misting over. I knew Snow recognized it. It was a child she had cared for in the orphanage where she volunteered before the apocalypse. In a previous life, a conscious zombie had also been captured but later disappeared from the research institute. I suspected it wasn't an escape, but that Snow, recognizing it, had secretly set it free. Why was I so sure this was the same zombie? Because it was the future zombie king who led the zombies against humanity, killing countless mutants, and it was also Snow's last trump card in the apocalypse. In a previous life, during a zombie horde siege on the northern base, a retreat had occurred. At that time, I was on the city wall, transporting weapons. Back then, Snow, anxiously watching Rylan fighting on the front lines, hadn't noticed a gaze from the horde intensely fixed on her. The moment Snow accidentally fell into the zombie horde, I personally witnessed the Zombie King issuing a retreat order. That battle cost the lives of many of the base's guards and mutants. I had been injured under its command and remembered its aura. No, it was still very weak. As Rylan was about to strike, Snow, her face deathly pale, stepped forward and grabbed his arm. "No, don't kill it. Let's send it back to the Research Institute. It might help us find a cure for the zombie virus," she explained calmly, her beautiful eyes flickering with resolve. The onlooking researchers exchanged glances and ultimately agreed with her suggestion. Following the principle of prioritizing researchers, Rylan agreed. The zombie was detained in the Winter Hunt Squad's military truck, with Rylan secretly keeping the key. Seeing this, Snow secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Before dawn, in the darkest hour of the world, Snow somehow stole the key and silently unlocked the cage in the military truck while everyone else was asleep. The zombie, once released, did not attack her as expected, but instead just stood there without attempting to escape. Snow couldn't help but chuckle at its behavior, her cheeks dimpling softly with a smile. "Come on, Annie, don't get caught again," she said, waving her hand affectionately to urge it to leave. Only when its figure staggered away into the dense night did she quietly return to her team, her heart finally at ease. I got up from the soft bed, sensing the direction in which it had disappeared. Quickly, I activated a folding jump and teleported several times to the desolate outskirts. There I saw it sitting atop the ruins like a human, surrounded by several wandering zombies that seemed to be summoned by its presence. The space fluctuated, and I appeared beside it, sensing danger. It quickly blended into the zombie crowd below. Narrowing my eyes, I made a slight gesture with my fingertips, and the heads of the zombies covering its escape were torn apart and fell to the ground. It was severely injured, with a deep gash on its neck where the flesh had been torn open. Seeing its puppet comrades fall, it looked at me with a burst of hatred in its eyes before turning to run. As it fled, it didn't forget to emit a ha-ha sound, calling more of its kind. So the ha-ha was a call for assembly. What about the people in the camp then? I lowered my gaze and pursued it, catching up in a few blinks and pinning it forcefully to the ground. It still struggled violently as I pressed my knee into its chest to restrain it, my hand slowly tightening around its neck. Tear, tear, tear. Its body was exceptionally robust. I pounded it with my powers until my consciousness blurred. Zombies from the dark corners nearby howled and approached but were torn apart within a meter's distance. With a thud, a head fell to the ground, making a dull sound. Exhausted, I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air and looking up at the sky. Dawn was breaking, and the first light appeared on the horizon. I had won. After fully regaining my strength 2 hours later in broad daylight, I sat up and picked up the skull, sensing a strange energy fluctuation. With a small movement of my fingertips, the skull cracked open, revealing a small, transparent crystal core amidst the black, stinking brain matter. A crystal core, unheard of in 10 years since the apocalypse began. No one had ever found a crystal core in a zombie's brain. The thumb-sized core radiated pure energy, seemingly attributeless. If it had no attribute, perhaps I could absorb it. I temporarily stored the head, body, and crystal core in my space and teleported back to the tent using the folding jump. It was lively outside early in the morning, as the ability users were clearing the surrounding zombie bodies. Despite the attack, the large and powerful numbers at the gathering point had managed to completely annihilate them. Suddenly, a shout broke the situation. Not good. The zombie in the cage has disappeared. Chaotic footsteps sounded, and I lay straight back on the soft bedding, peacefully. I fell asleep. On the evening of the 5th day, the last team arrived at the gathering point. After nearly half a month of bloody battles, everyone was tired. The logistics team generously cooked noodle soup. People gathered around the camp, excitedly burying their heads and devouring the fragrant noodles. I too received some food and quietly shrank in a corner to reduce my presence. Before I had eaten half, Rylan and other senior internal members received a communication from the base. They held a secret meeting on a military truck, and when they came down, they looked solemnly over the crowd. The guard team then began to individually check the ability users present, asking about everyone's whereabouts on the night 5 days ago. I immediately realized that the people from the northern base had decrypted the encrypted signal from the radio in the villa's basement. Now that they had the location, they wanted to use it to find those who knew the secrets of ability evolution. From evening to deep night, the guard team conducted a thorough check without much result. Although members of the 5 teams had been separated by accidents, most had escaped in groups, meaning they had companions to vouch for them. Only I, alone and solitary, was the most suspect on the scene. However, the captain of the guard team just circled around me twice, confirmed my appearance, and then excluded me. The reason was simple. The broadcast's location was in the northernmost part of H City. Traveling from the north takes at least 6 days and nights. I arrived at the camp on the first day after the rally signal was sent, and 2 teams remembered me. A search for those in trouble yielded no results, so the guard squad let everyone return to their tents to rest. I didn't move and stayed sitting by the campfire, warming myself and roasting sweet potatoes by the charcoal. When the apocalypse first began, I passed by a farm and gathered some tasty tubers. A dark figure approached, the bright campfire casting a flickering light on his face. "You are strong. Join the winter hunt. I will ensure your safety," said Rylan. It was both a recruitment and a test. Even though I was cleared of suspicion, his hunter's intuition still pinpointed me as the person from the broadcast. Unfortunately, he had no proof. Recruiting me was meant to enhance the overall strength of the winter hunt and to pry more secrets of evolution from me. I pulled a fragrant roasted sweet potato from the fire, peeled it, and took a bite. It was soft and sticky, just the texture Luna liked. I planned to promote its cultivation once we reached the western base. Rylan was still waiting for my response, quietly and calmly, but in reality, he knew my background and I understood his schemes. We were tacit enemies. Even if I agreed, she wouldn't, I said. She's too kind to associate with me. I didn't outright refuse, but instead lifted my chin in a mocking smile. From a nearby tent, Snow, tightly wrapped in his oversized coat, stared over, his face tense and unable to hide his disappointment as he ran towards the darkness. "I hope you won't regret this." The man's cool voice reached me, and by the time I looked up, he had already left. The warmth of the fire faded, and a chill swept in. I threw the sweet potato skin into the fire, watching as Rylan chased after Snow into the night. In the darkness, their proverbial halos of the main characters were faintly visible. Having not seen them for many days, Rylan's powers were now much weaker than mine. This meant Snow's triple fortunes, the Jade Space, a powerful partner, and the Zombie King, had all been severed by me. It seemed time to make a move on them. The journey back to the northern base took about half a month, and I drove a military truck blending in with the main forces. Unfortunately, I found no opportunity to catch the main characters alone even as we entered the base. Soon, an unexpected event silently occurred. Zombie horde incoming. All those with abilities, please quickly head to the city tower to combat the zombies. The base's shrill alarm echoed through the skies, a tense atmosphere spreading. I sprang from the dim basement bed, dressed in heavy clothes, and headed out. All those rushing towards the city tower were ability users, normally dispersed. The guards now emerged en masse, rushing to the front lines with their weapons. I had killed the Zombie King. Why was the zombie horde still erupting like in my past life? Could fate really not be changed? I saw Rylan at the city tower, dressed in all black tactical gear. He led the winter hunt squad, their faces grim as they stared at the horizon. A suffocating stench of decay filled the air, heralding the arrival of the horde. As the dense growling approached, All the ability users sprang into action. I realized then that the crowd already included evolved ability users. I was thankful I had disclosed the secret of ability evolution, giving humanity an extra chance. As the base commander issued orders, countless abilities exploded among the zombies: earth walls, firestorms, tornadoes, lightning. However, as waves of zombies fell, more continuously took their place, seemingly tireless and fearless, they surged towards the base like a tidal wave. Gradually, an atmosphere of oppression and despair began to spread. Without a moment to spare, I climbed to the highest step, kneeled on one knee, and gently placed my palm on the ground. Suddenly, a huge crack appeared out of nowhere on the battlefield. It was like a dark bottomless pit, frantically sucking in everything nearby. The zombies in the vicinity couldn't resist this powerful force and were violently pulled into the crack and devoured completely. The dense wave of zombies seemed caught off guard. Pausing abruptly for a moment, only after clearing a whole area did I raise my hand to close the crack. After resting on the spot for a few minutes, I turned in a different direction and continued to tear open new fissures with both hands. Several cracks appeared simultaneously on the field, filled with deadly intent. Even the most experienced superhumans were shocked by the scene, all casting sideways glances. Damn. I thought that was the ultimate move just now. How can she still unleash more? Who is this girl? I've never heard of her before. I thought I was being tragic just now, but now I feel strangely pumped. The power of an individual is insignificant. Even I, a superhuman who has evolved twice, cannot dominate the battlefield alone. Fortunately, nearly 300 superhumans were gathered at the base, which was more than enough to handle these early-stage zombies. The struggle was only due to everyone's lack of experience in defending a city during the apocalypse. Having fought alongside the base for nearly a decade in my previous life, I was able to fill that gap. Earth users, create a wall 50 meters from the base for separation, and a 5-meter deep circular trench 100 meters further. Water users, fill the trench with water, and electro users, release electricity into it. Wind users, work with fire users to spread a sea of fire around the base. Mental abilities. At first, the superhumans were hesitant about my commands. But once they saw they were effective, everyone began to carry them out. The battle lasted several hours, and the sunset gradually disappeared below the horizon. When the last wave of zombies staggered and fell, the entire battlefield fell into a deadly silence. I closed the remaining spatial cracks and looked around. The firelight illuminated the entire area, and the ground littered with zombie limbs and dark bloodstains testified to the intensity of the recent battle. Victorious shouts spread from the city tower to the base, and many superhumans wept. Exhausted, I leaned against the city wall, my clothes soaked with sweat. The aftermath of overusing my abilities hit, and a sharp pain surged through my mind. In my blurred consciousness, I saw Snow, who had somehow made her way up the city tower, her bright eyes wide open, her pale face advancing towards me step by step. I instinctively furrowed my brows, sensing something was off, and a sense of alertness arose. The zombie wave has truly erupted. Those dreams were real. Where's my jade pendant? I should be a senior researcher. Why didn't your sister die? It's not supposed to be like this. You're just a rat from the gutter. I am the heroine. I am their savior. It's you, you bitch. You took everything from me. Snow's eyes misted over, her hand trembling as she revealed a dagger hidden behind her. She murmured softly, a hint of madness flickering across her face. At that moment, I was exhausted. Leaning against the city wall, barely standing, with no strength left to resist, the closest person to us was Rylan, but he just coldly watched as Snow drove the cold dagger into my shoulder. The next second, purple lightning surged into my body, and I smelled the scent of burning flesh. My limbs numbed, unable to move, and the pain nearly shattered my sanity. Just like in my previous life, I fell from the high city wall once again. In my ears, the shouts of victory still echoed, "I can't die. Luna is still waiting for me." The fierce wind howled ceaselessly, and in the final moment before hitting the ground, I barely activated a fold. Before teleporting away, I saw the second wave of zombies furiously surging towards the horizon. When I regained consciousness, I was in a basement again, but it wasn't my home's basement, bearing the severe pain in my shoulder. I tried to push myself up but found my limbs powerless and unable to move. In the dim light, a plump little hand suddenly touched my mouth, and a sweet taste instantly spread across my palate. The door to the basement was pushed open, as someone, weary from travel, entered and turned on the light. Only then could I clearly see the child sitting next to me. It was Mountain's granddaughter, Yo-Yo. "Sit further away. Don't touch your sister," Mountain said. He had barely managed to secure some medicine from the base clinic when he found his granddaughter curiously leaning over my bed. In a panic, he picked her up, only then realizing I had come to my savior. "You're finally awake." I hadn't seen Mountain in months. His posture was straighter, and he no longer looked as haggard and old as when we first met. Yo-Yo, quietly sitting in his arms, blinked her big eyes, her face softer now. After the first wave of zombies passed, I took on a task to help clear the zombie corpses around the base perimeter. I didn't expect to find you. Seeing the knife on your shoulder, I got scared and didn't dare send you to the clinic, so I carried you back home instead. Luckily, my ancestors were doctors, which gave me the courage to remove the knife and stop the bleeding. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Are you all right? As Mountain carefully explained. He lifted the white cloth from my shoulder to apply medicine to the wound. When the first wave of zombies struck, he had taken his granddaughter to the basement for refuge, unaware of what was happening on the city walls. When the second crisis arrived, he hadn't ventured out again. I listened in silence, offering no explanations. A pot of millet porridge simmered on the stove nearby, bubbling and releasing a light, milky fragrance. Have some porridge to regain your strength? Mountain served me a bowl of the thickest porridge. His granddaughter sipped the millet soup, smacking her lips, while he cheerfully nibbled on dry biscuits. A slight bitterness welled up in me as I gratefully accepted the bowl and slowly sipped. Only after consuming half a bowl of warm porridge did my strength somewhat return. That's when I realized that my supernatural abilities were still depleted, making even retrieving objects from my space extremely difficult. My weakened body was slowing the recovery of my powers. Based on the current situation, I would need at least half a month before I could use my abilities again. However, from Mountain's description, I surmised that the third wave of zombies would arrive soon. After a moment of thought, I used the last bit of my regained strength to pull a thumb-sized crystal core from my space and crawled to a corner to sit cross-legged. Grandpa, I need to meditate in silence for the next 3 days. Please guard this place for me. All right, I'll make sure no one disturbs you. Mountain solemnly nodded, then carried his granddaughter to the bed and dragged it to the door to block it. He lay down straight, demonstrating his unyielding resolve. I managed a weak smile at him, gripped the crystal core, and slowly closed my eyes. This was the unattributed energy core I had extracted from the brain of a zombie king after killing him. It was supposed to be absorbable, soon, a pure warm current flowed from my palm, spreading through my fingertips into my limbs and bones, like a long dry well desperately absorbing a much-needed rain. My weakened body soaked up the tremendous energy, which transformed into a spatial force, slowly permeating the cramped basement, the empty base, the psychics fighting bravely on the walls, the rapidly approaching third wave of zombies. Just as I thought my consciousness would not extend further, the limitations of space broke. Extending into a vast wasteland, huge armies of zombies, humans fleeing in all directions, bases being gradually overrun. The distant eastern and southern bases had already fallen, people screaming as they died under the jaws of zombies, yet the next second, they staggered to their feet, their complexions ashen. The crystal core in my hand gradually dimmed, and my consciousness began to retract. The third evolution of my abilities also spawned a new power: seal, isolate a certain range of space, preventing any entity from entering or leaving, a strong defensive ability, perfect for defending a city. At the same time, I noticed on a shelf in the corner of the space, where seeds were stored, a tender green sprout was bursting with life. This means that the space can now sustain life and house living beings. I controlled the seed with my consciousness, attempting to plant it in the greenhouse experimental field a kilometer away from the base through fold teleportation. After a moment, the slightly moist sensation of the soil was transmitted through the seed. It was a success. The fold had evolved from only being able to teleport oneself to creating spatial channels to transport other entities. Sister, in the cramped and dim basement, the doll that had been sleeping soundly suddenly scrambled up, pointing in my direction and babbling. Mountain, who had been napping, instantly sat up with a jolt. Seeing that I had woken up unharmed, he let out a huge sigh of relief. The small stove was ready with cooked white rice and a boiled egg. The old man scooped a full bowl of rice for me and stuffed the egg into my hand. The doll in his arms lipped eagerly, drooling, but sensibly did not fuss to eat. Soft-hearted, I quickly peeled the eggshell, took a few bites, and fed the tender yolk to her. However, I had barely eaten a few bites when the base's shrill alarm sounded again. Warning: the third wave of the zombie horde is approaching. Please support if you can. The broadcast repeated 3 times and then stopped, never to sound again. Although this wave of zombies was not as large as before, after 2 desperate battles, everyone was already at their limit. The remaining superhumans stood on the city walls, filled with despair. Seeing the dire situation, Rylan hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to leave with teary-eyed Snow. Little did they know, the next second, my figure had shifted to the city wall. The superhumans watched as a figure rippled out of thin air, and just as the zombies were about to breach the wall, they were suddenly blocked by an unknown force. The familiar spatial rift appeared again, devouring a large number of zombies around it. The commander is back, I declare. From now on, the commander sister is my great sister. What to do? I feel like we can win again. It turned out that during my absence, the base leader had appointed me as the commander. My combat power instantly turned the tide, and the exhausted crowd seemed to grasp hope and cheered up. Pushing their drained superpowers to the limit, they continued to use them. When it became clear that the zombies were indeed being invisibly blocked outside the base, everyone became even more energized, almost recklessly smashing their superpowers down. The few superhumans who had evolved during the last encounter were still alive, showing extraordinary combat strength. Having fought side by side for many days, they developed a tacit understanding, and the combination of wind and fire instantly whipped up a fiery explosion on the battlefield. The soaring flames lit the dark clouds, seeming to break through them. This is the greatness of humanity. Even on the brink of extinction, as long as there is a glimmer of hope for survival, they will rise up in resistance. Hope, like a spark, ignites the boundless wilderness in people's hearts. The superhumans shouted slogans, vowing to defend the fortress built by human hands. When the last zombie disappeared into the rift, dawn quietly arrived, daylight scattered across the earth, and the zombie tide completely receded. Listening quietly to the shouts of victory, I disappeared from the crowd. Boom! In the secret passage of the northern base, I appeared directly, tearing the speeding military truck into two halves. The two people inside tumbled out, rolling several meters away. Snow groaned in pain, her delicate skin almost completely unscathed. The arm that had stabbed me with a dagger was forcibly torn off, its stark white bones exposed to the air. The next second, she turned pale and fainted. But how could I easily let her go? I hooked the corner of my lips, raised my hand, and harshly tore off her other fair arm. This arm had stolen the potion in a past life, causing my sister's death. It should not remain. Snow was painfully awakened from her faint, looking at me with eyes filled with fear. You can't kill people. You can't kill me. I'm the female lead. I understand. Do you like Rylan? I can give him up for you. I'm handing him over to you. She shrieked sharply, causing quite a racket. Thus, I simply removed her jaw. How dare she turn a serious life-or-death grudge into a petty squabble, regardless of gender. I'm ready to knock anyone out with a single punch. Nearby, Ryland's eyes reddened instantly as he glared at me, his body crackling with lightning. Like a leopard on the brink of death, he attempted to deliver a fatal blow to the hunter in a desperate counterattack. Seeing this, I simply moved my fingertips and effortlessly immobilized him on the spot. Neither person nor power could find room to be exercised. As the captain of the base guard, you fled the battle, abandoning your team and the civilians. You deserve to die. Everyone has the right to survive, including me, he retorted. I wouldn't listen. Go die. I gave an innocent smile, gently placing my rough hand on his bloodied skin. I tore it apart, after 3 difficult waves of zombie attacks. The outer walls of the base were severely damaged. Fortunately, the losses among the superpowered and the guards were minimal. This was largely because the zombies were still relatively weak in the early days of the apocalypse. Even in groups, their lethality was not significant. However, I remembered the upcoming waves of zombies that the northern base would face in the next few years. By then, each victory would only be won through the sacrifices of successive superpowered individuals. I didn't want to see that happen, so I decided to migrate westward. During my 3rd evolution, my consciousness spanned the continent, witnessing the fall of the southern and eastern regions. Thus, only the west, the Tibetan area, remained as the last bastion for human survival. If we didn't move at the onset of the apocalypse, we wouldn't be able to escape once the zombies grew stronger. The base leader considered my plan for only 5 minutes before agreeing, so the survivors of the northern base began a long, arduous journey toward that hopeful land. I used my spatial abilities to transport supplies while people drove out in droves with their belongings. After a grueling journey lasting nearly half a year, we finally arrived in the west. It was January 1st of the new era, year 2. At 6 a.m., the northern survivors entered the western base only to find it eerily deserted. The western base had vanished before despair could set in. Someone found a set of coordinates left by the base. Following these coordinates, we were stopped by a massive canyon. The western region, near the tectonic plate boundaries, had experienced unusual seismic activity a few months earlier. A huge rift valley had emerged overnight during people's sleep, cutting off transportation. The western base had fortuitously relocated to the other side of the rift, isolated from the zombie hordes of the northeast and south. That meant there was a survivor-built base standing safely on the ruins of the apocalypse on the other side of the rift. It was humanity's last bastion of hope. While everyone looked on tiptoe in anticipation, I had already followed the coordinates and teleported. On the tranquil Tibetan plateau stood a towering steel fortress. When I appeared out of thin air, the base guards didn't show alarm but exchanged glances. One guard turned and ran inside the base, while others eagerly approached to ask my name. I'm Ella. It's her, the savior. The prophesied savior has appeared. The guards looked at me with reverence, their eyes filled with fervor. I frowned in confusion, puzzled. Prophecy, what prophecy? Just then, a small figure I hadn't seen in a long time ran out of the base gates. Luna, like a joyful little bird, flew into my arms. Her soft, light-colored short hair had grown long and curled lightly on her shoulders. I hugged her tightly, cherishing a kiss on her forehead. This child, she was already 6 years old. Sister, you've come to get me. I'm here. I always said I would come. Soft little hands gently caressed my face, tenderly wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes. Luna's parents, dressed in military uniforms, stood nearby with kind smiles and invited me into the base. Luna, are you a prophet? I asked. No, she replied. In the clean resting room, Luna, with her innocent charm, leaned against me, swinging her little legs. Despite her denial, as I walked through the base, I had heard of numerous prophecies she had successfully foreseen. For instance, 5 months ago, she predicted a meteorite would fall on City H. For months prior, she foretold a rift appearing in the west. 3 months ago, she declared an outbreak of a zombie tide. 2 months before, she envisioned a savior named Ella appearing outside the base. Each and every one of these events came to pass, saving the western base and elevating Luna to a deity-like status among the survivors. Yet now, Luna claimed she could not prophesy. There was only one possibility left. She, like me, had been reborn. This time, Luna did not deny it. In my past life, after I died, my soul stayed with my sister, so I knew about our parents in the western base, but then my sister died too, and I woke up, she explained. Mentioning death, the child in my arms clung tightly around my neck, afraid to let go. I comforted her by patting her back, recalling the small figure I saw just before I died in my previous life. It was indeed my little sister, who had been with me all those years. So, when you decided to leave me and return to the western base, was it to convince them to move there before the rift appeared? I asked. Yes, I said I was a prophet so they would believe me, she admitted with her cheeks puffed, her round eyes slightly squinting, proudly like a little cat that had done a good deed. I laughed as I popped a candy into her mouth and pinched her chubby cheeks, feeling a softness in my heart. How could you lie that I would definitely come to find you? That didn't happen in our past lives. I didn't lie. I saw it. Her eyes, bright under crescent-shaped brows, were filled with certainty. Saw what? I saw you becoming strong, defeating those 2 villains, and then we won. We won. Did everyone survive? Yes, according to Luna's prophecy, humanity had survived. The future had changed. I returned to the other side of the rift, using a fold to establish a passage and gradually moved people across. From nightfall to dawn and back to night, we finally completed the migration. Survivors, standing in front of the intact gates of the western base, embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces in excitement. I handed over all the supplies I had brought from the base and those collected along the way, significantly increasing our stock. The western base had started cultivating crops and cleared out the zombies, beginning some small-scale livestock farming. The resources were sufficient for all the remaining survivors. After settling everyone, I rushed to the research institute of the base. In the original story, the female protagonist, Snow, persistently researched a substance called the reversal potion. This was humanity's ultimate hope for liberation, capable of repairing virus-mutated genes and achieving the miraculous transformation of zombies back into humans. Sadly, until humanity's extinction, she never succeeded. Whether the western base could achieve this remained uncertain. Upon entering the base, the researchers, all wearing white lab coats, were diligently at work. When they noticed me, they paused their tasks and gathered around. The lead researcher, an elderly man with white hair, came over excitedly to shake my hand. I shared my ideas about the reversal potion, sparking a vigorous discussion among the group. I heard that the northern base once accidentally discovered a special spring water that could alter the virus's structure, but unfortunately, the data was lost when the base was destroyed, someone mentioned. Silently, I took out several hundred bottles of this mystical spring water from my space. I heard about a meteorite that fell in City H, which could have been used to study the zombie virus's origin, but sadly its whereabouts are unknown. Again, in silence, I produced the meteorite, now stored in a vacuum box. From my space, I heard there were intelligent mutants among the zombies, but unfortunately, they were never captured after extensive searching. Without a word, I took out the body of the zombie king and a half-sliced head from my space. The researchers, seeing these materials as treasures, tearfully looked at me. The savior, sister, you wouldn't happen to be one of those apocalypse protagonists with a golden touch, would you? Amidst the fervor, I simply waved my hand, unsure how to explain, but their mention of a main character did remind me of a couple of people. From the research institute, I shifted thousands of miles away to the northern base. They were thrown back into the fold. Two tightly bound individuals were harshly dumped onto the ground, writhing and groaning madly. The bystanders remained silent, furrowing their brows as they questioned whether the figures on the ground could still be called human. Compensate with an antidote. Would an antidote bring my sister back to life? My skin, the person stammered as chunks of flesh fell away, revealing dark, pus-oozing innards. With only half a face remaining and the jawbone detached, while black blood continuously poured from the mouth, they looked at them. They were hardly human anymore, more like half-human, half-corpse. These were subjects I had specifically prepared for experimentation at the western base. Initially, I didn't kill them, I just twisted their limbs and dumped them at the northern base, sealing them in. Killing them easily would have been too lenient. Rylan, Snow. Use the last remnants of your lives to offer some final value to humanity. Ignoring the desperate groans of the two on the ground, I resolutely turned and left. In the third year of the new era, I led the team of mutants, traversing the ends of the rift. We searched for scattered survivors in the eastern, southern, and northern regions, gathering supplies and discovering numerous fallen meteorites. By the fourth year of the new era, the number of evolved mutants among humans continued to increase. Together, we built a new base on the ruins of the old human stronghold. In the fifth year of the new era, the development of the reversal serum was successful. We moved among hordes of zombies, injecting them en masse with the serum and settling them in the newly established base. By the seventh year of the new era, the last of the zombies had disappeared, the apocalypse ended, and the course of human history continued. Ushering in a triumphant conclusion for humanity, I brought Rylan and Snow, restored to their human forms, back to the original northern base. Ella, I was wrong. Please forgive me, Ella, you wretch. You won't die a good death. You're just a minor villain. After my rebirth, you'll be the first one I kill. Ha ha. Thud. As they fell from the city wall amidst the howling wind, they crashed into a heap of mush. The world did not collapse, the timeline did not rewind, and no one was reborn again. The dawn's early light appeared on the horizon, signaling a bright future ahead. I sat on the city wall, laughing, as I enjoyed the breeze of the wilderness. I'm not just a minor villain, I am the strongest villain of the apocalypse.